Lin Ziyi, the space-manipulating prodigy, was now facing the biggest challenge of her life, a ruthless sea beast. This was nothing like she had ever seen before. And so, she decided to teleport right back into the moving car. Her mentor saw her distraught reaction and went into alert mode. The prodigy just kept murmuring that they needed to leave this city or they would make it in time. Inside Magic City, a top-level red alert had been issued. All civilians must evacuate at once. A large-scale invasion was coming from the coast, and everyone needed to get the hell out of the Forsaken City. In the Spirit Power Monitoring Bureau, they were freaking out about the surge of third-order transcendent sea beasts with an average power of 4 million. Needless to say, the situation was bad, was borderline hopeless. The bureau chief didn't need any fluff. She just wanted to get the full picture. Well, it wasn't just the Federation that was under attack. Magic City was being sieged by overgrown sea beasts too. So was the Seven Nations Alliance. They were being drowned by massive tsunamis. Luo Kingdom was also on the same sinking boat. Coastal nations and cities all over the globe were experiencing the same dread. Humanity was being attacked by relentless sea beasts simultaneously. Each attack was led by hulking beasts with unfathomable powers. This was not supposed to happen. None of them had expected the sea to declare an all-out war against the land right now. In the northern regions, Qinggong was receiving a report from their sea ally, the orca. The mutated aquatic mammal wanted to pass on the warning for the invasion launched by a few kings from the deep sea. All notable beasts in the water had been summoned to attack, even the orca itself. Qinggong understood the gravity of the situation and reminded the orca to be careful. There was no need to worry about that guy, though. He was the best at fishing in troubled waters. In Australia, a similar event was also happening, and they had the beast army to resist what was coming. Even the sly kangaroo beast did not expect something like this. They were about to face one of the kings of the seven seas, the peak transcendent third-order flood dragon king, backed up by the vermilion monarch and azure sea serpent. The flood dragon king proudly introduced itself and demanded Australia's beast army to stop their vain attempt at resisting. The kangaroo beast had long since been worried about the deep sea. He just did not expect such a frantic worldwide invasion. But now that they were here, he intended to make these reptiles regret their decision to even go out of water. In a different coastal city, something was brewing under the metropolis. Some scientists were trying to establish a communication line with something and failing. They were trying to connect with freaking Godzilla, but there had been no reaction at all thus far. With the sea invasion in full swing, all the coastal cities would be lost within just half a day. This synthetic beast was the city's only solution. The lead scientist was proud of his ability to communicate with mutant beasts and wanted to control this one. Then a guttural roar shook the entire facility. Godzilla started speaking and told him that the invasion was inevitable and humans were fated to be destroyed. It was ominous, but this was the first time that they had successfully communicated with Godzilla. The lead scientist refused the notion that humans were fated for destruction. The number of sea beasts and their energy levels was strong, but it shouldn't be at the stage of hopelessness yet. Godzilla was the perfect beast created by their research. Its bones were made of metal fibers. Cells functioned as an electromagnetic coil. Its body structure was something that had far exceeded human cognition. As long as Godzilla helped with the sea beast problem, the lead scientist offered it a whole dragon egg to become even stronger. Of course, it would be obligated to not be allowed to destroy the country too. The final choice was up to the monster itself. Godzilla was weighing the options carefully. While that was happening, the Luo Kingdom was continuously getting flooded by the rising sea level. Sea beasts of all shapes had surfaced to bring about wanton destruction. This turtle monster was going crazy with his energy beams. It looked like he just enjoyed killing civilians. In Hua Xia Federation, an assortment of powerful monsters was also swimming in with immense momentum. All of them were roaring and had murder in their eyes. An angler fish was ravenously snacking whole buildings. The city's transcendent soldiers were deployed in hopes of stopping the invasion from going further. The pride of the city was pouring their hearts out against the small fishes of the invasion. But even against trash mobs, it was hopeless. The number of sea beasts just kept on increasing. At Inferno City, their fiery name had a huge contrast to the state of the place. It was completely flooded. Beneath the waters that drowned out buildings were countless critters waiting to kill. Some of the deployed soldiers noticed a huge amount of mist rising up from the heart of the city. But it was not mist at all, it was steam. The critters hanging around under the flood were literally cooked as the seawater boiled. The one conducting this citywide cooking show could be seen in the middle of the action. All I can say is let this person cook. It was none other than the Flame Empress herself, Shi Yaoling. She was about to go face to face with the fearsome sea monsters, and she was stronger than ever before after successfully ascending to the third order of transcendence. From the ground below, let's turn our attention to the skies above in the celestial mountain. In this heavenly place, a white elephant has awakened. Once again, the creatures of the world are entering a miserable state. He needs to step forward to settle this dispute. The invasion of the sea beasts has also reached the continent of Africa. The humid environment and its inhabitants are being feasted upon by various aquatic monsters. The indigenous people of the land seem unfazed though. They're in the midst of a ceremony to invoke the power to resist the invasion. And in a stalwart stone throne sits a man with divine power. That divine power is currently being challenged by an unwelcome fishy invader. This beast is known as the Twin King. Just like all the other sea kings, he's at the peak of third order transcendence. The man on the throne did not even bat an eye. Inside him lies a terrifying power. In the misty mountains, the dark clouds had lifted, and the sun was revealed. Just in time for the god of trees awakening from a long cultivation slumber, Ninetails was already there to welcome her master back. Now that Yuziyu had opened his eyes, his subjects were curious if he managed to break through. Unfortunately, he's still one step away from a true level up. He did not expect the power consumption to be so enormous, and he still needs 10 million evolution points to take the next step. He asked Ninetails what he missed and why there were so many strong spirit powers being emitted in multiple directions. After Ninetails gave him the report regarding the current state of the world, God Tree was left in thought. The kings of the seven seas have finally made their move to encroach on land. He didn't expect that they would mount such a large-scale invasion. But this just means that you won't have to worry about farming evolution points. Lending a helping hand to the humans would raise his prestige in their hearts too. This is a great opportunity to kill multiple birds with one stone. He also ordered Ninetails to take control of an elite strike force to subdue some strong sea beasts to expand their forces. As for the big boss himself, he'll go and meet with these fishes personally. Magic City has turned into Atlantis at this point. The sea has swallowed skyscrapers in their entirety. The concentration of sea beasts in this area was insane. No matter how trivial, the prodigy of the city was still doing her best to resist. Lin Ziyi is holding up quite well against the small fishes with her space slashes. There's no denying that she has immense potential to be a powerhouse. But as of now, the quantity of powerful enemies was proving to be too much. She no longer has the strength to make an escape, but her efforts should buy a bit more time for the civilians. Just as she was about to get eaten by a sea monster out of exhaustion, she steeled her resolve for the embrace of death. But it seems like it's not her time yet. A beam of light pierced through the attacking Sea King. It was a critical hit and a very effective knockdown skill. Lin Ziyi could not believe her eyes. She was supposed to die helplessly, but she was saved by a light ray that came from the sky. It was the third order transcendent white jade elephant of the celestial mountain. Common sense dictates that a giant elephant should not be floating in the air. But common sense has left the world a long time ago. White Jade Elephant was already priming another ray of light coming from his trunk. He added a theatrical flair as he spun the attack like a lasso this time around. Sea Kings are not that easy to take down though. When the elephant unleashed another one of his signature attacks, the Sea King was prepared to brace himself this time around. This all-out attack was supposed to wipe out one of the major battlefield threats, but as the dust settled, the Sea King looked unharmed. White Jade Elephant started feeling that something bad was about to happen. Meanwhile, Lin Ziyi was capitalizing on the opportunity to escape the chaos. If she had not escaped on time, she would have certainly died there. Her portals could not even take her outside of the city with how spent she was. That's when Xi Yaoling surprisingly came up to her and assessed that the giant elephant was strong enough to hold the fort. Lin Ziyi, along with the new generation of transcendent humans, knew who this empress was. The squad of the Honorable Golden Masked Soldier has also touched down. Up until now, 27 coastal cities have already fallen to the sea beasts. Amongst them, 5 have been turned into ruins. Although the rest of the cities are still resisting, it would only be a matter of time before they fall. Gold Mask has also accepted that all they can do is delay the enemy's advancement. This time would be different compared to the conflict against Australia. With the Sea Beast King and the other kings of the 7 seas deployed, the end of the world is on the horizon. Being a human in this world sucks so hard. These miserable soldiers can say whatever they want. The Flame Empress will go in regardless. With her current strength, this would be a death sentence. It would be better to conserve power while the upper echelons come up with a final strategy. The country is getting ready to use the Spirit Orbital Cannon. If that succeeds, this sea beast disaster could be resolved. But Xi Yaoling argues that the people trapped in the city can't wait any longer. She formed wings made of flame and traversed the submerged city through flight. Those are spiritual wings, and only experts in the Third Order can execute that technique. The strength of a transcendent Third Order Empress is about to make its debut. While flying through the air, a bunch of ugly fish monsters jumped from the water to take a bite out of her. With her breakthrough, the Flame Empress has also unlocked a higher tier of fire. A purple blaze fried every fish that dared to stand in her way. With every attack, her heat was evaporating the rising seawater. Xi Yaoling's speed could not be understated too. Her target was the big boss behind Magic City's predicament, the ugly Sea Beast King. It pisses her off that this monster has been happily messing around with life. The first blazing attack landed magnificently. She took the first free attack and promptly created some distance just to be safe. The Empress followed up with Purple Flame Incineration. Based on the painful roars of the Sea Beast King, it seems like the attack lived up to its name. Using flame in open waters can lead to an extremely steamy battlefield. The monster used the cover of the steam to mount a counterattack. This enemy was just too big, and the scope of her attack is not nearly enough. Thankfully, the White Jade Elephant was there to pick up the slack when she was starting to fumble. The Sea Beast King could not even catch a break. Well-timed attacks were coming left and right. Xi Yaoling asked the giant elephant who it really was. He promised to explain later, but insisted that he was not the enemy. Their enemy was up front, sucking up the steam for some reason. The Sea Beast King used the enemy's hindered vision to unleash a very familiar attack. White Jade Elephant stopped in his tracks out of shock. Sea Beast King has mimicked the elephant's form, and along with it comes the attacks. It was a confusing development that caught the beasts of the Celestial Mountain off guard. Xi Yaoling managed to put up a purple flame shield in the nick of time. They were starting to see the enemy's new form. That deep-sea fish has turned into an evil and ugly version of the White Jade Elephant. Not just that, even her flames have been incorporated into the monster's new form. The Sea Beast King was capable of absorbing and mimicking attacks from other creatures. This type of enemy was the worst one to go up against. In another location, the familiar scene of cities getting devoured by the sea was also happening. In this city, the fishes have grown impatient and are now snatching civilians on land. Normal people were no match against the speed of fishy monsters. With no one leading the evacuation effort, chaos descended as people were picked off one by one. Just as a mother and child were about to be a tasty snack, the beast that dared to overextend was punished with death. Mist beasts were unleashed all over the city to take care of the lesser monsters. Inside the mist was the god tree himself, happily grinding out evolution points from left and right. The people looked at their savior and rejoiced. Instead of calling him a demon tree, they've accepted him as the divine god tree. On his way here, the invasions of the sea beasts nearby were horrible. The situation further into the coast must be even worse than the outskirts. And he was right. Bustling cities returned into a wet and ruined relic. Further up was the Sea Beast King, flexing his new form and raining a barrage of sharp tusks. The Flame Empress was starting to struggle to keep her flame shield up. The White Jade Elephant opted to trust in his defenses and tank the hits while closing the gap. Once he got close enough, he raised a foot right above the monster's face. With tons and tons of pure muscle mass, the elephant tried to stamp the ugly fish to death. It looked effective as the monster spewed out disgusting bile from its mouth. The Empress also took advantage of the moment to get an attack in. Her target was the monster's vulnerable eyes. Her weapon of choice was a concentrated purple flame sword. The unlikely duo just made the perfect coordinated attack without even knowing each other. But a Sea Beast King won't be a Sea Beast King if it falls that easily. This ugly elephant fish was already concentrating enough energy for another breath attack. Xiao Ling had to tank the hit directly with only her flame shield separating her from death. White Jade Elephant watched as the human he was working with got blasted at point-blank range. The energy attack pushed her toward a ruined tower. The momentum was immense, but Xiao Ling successfully resisted. Now, there's even more fighting spirit in her eyes. White Jade Elephant wanted to check on her, but lowering your guard in this situation is a death sentence. The Sea Beast King seemed unkillable. That's because this one is not your run-of-the-mill sea beast. That ugly fish is one of the 7 kings that unified the chaotic deep sea. One of the ringleaders responsible for the land invasion as a whole. They just happened to match up against the biggest problem of them all, the king of all sea beasts. With a loud roar, it continued its barrage of powerful attacks. White Jade Elephant had to step up and use his spinning trunks as an improvised shield against the barrage. Once he got close enough, he followed it up with a sky-piercing hoof. With sheer physical force, the giant managed to unleash an attack that could pulverize powerful beings. Its sheer momentum disturbed the water into high heavens. Xiao Ling was equal parts terrified and relieved. That attack managed to shatter space. Other than her master's flying leaf blade, this is the second time he has seen a creature capable of shattering space. That sky-piercing hoof was so powerful that it created a vortex in the water like a toilet being flushed. He felt assured that no matter how tough its skin was or how thick its flesh was, it would be impossible to survive his signature attack. But Sea Beast King was just hiding behind the tide. This time, it had adapted some elephant hooves of its own. And as if mocking the progenitor of the technique, it also unleashed a sky-piercing hoof attack. It was not a half-baked replication. The Sea Beast King also tore through the fabric of space. The biggest victim of this intense battle was Magic City itself. While the White Jade Elephant lies down bleeding in critical condition, Xiao Ling is left to deal with the monstrosity by herself. This giant beast from the Celestial Mountain came in hot but was quickly extinguished. It seems like this fight was even tougher than the Empress initially thought it would be. Sea Beast King's advocacy was simple. They believed that the land belonged to the sea. Everything belongs to the sea. The rebels that dared to resist shall die. Raising its hooves once again, the Flame Empress is next on the monster's blacklist. She was frozen in place. The sheer power of the enemy was literally space-shattering. The heart of Magic City was once shaken by towering waves for that of time. But the culprit was not the Sea Beast King this time around. With a crimson, though and stalwart body, the main event has finally arrived. Flame Empress knew this commanding and comforting presence too well. Power was coursing through every bit of foliage. The god tree, Yuziyu, is finally going up against the disgusting king of the sea beasts. Sensing that the newcomer was not your typical enemy, the king immediately kicked it up to the highest gear. Yuziyu was unfazed. This was his first time seeing one of the deep sea kings, and this one was surprisingly ugly. It looked like an amorphous blob that was trying its hardest to look like the ugliest elephant in the world. Hopping into the air with a fierce roar, the king wanted to get a quick attack in. With both feet filling with spiritual power, the sky-piercing hoof was locked and loaded. Shi Yaoling urgently warned her master to be careful as that attack could shatter space. Tree heeded her advice and prepared to respond accordingly with style. He used one swift whipping motion of a branch to block the space-shattering hoof. The environment was not safe from collateral damage when the pinnacle of offense and defense clashed. Shi Yaoling was nearly dragged by the impact, but she was caught by a white trunk. White Jade Elephant has woken up from being knocked down. He noticed that the king of the sea beasts was capable of adding power to its mimicked attacks, but it was useless against the God Tree. The spiritual power emitting from the master of Misty Mountains is too powerful. He was casually parrying an attack that could easily kill a normal third-order transcendent being. If you know God Tree, you know that he loves talking trash against enemies. This time wasn't any different. His taunts were extremely effective against this ugly monster. It started getting reckless, unleashing multiple sky-piercing hooves in a short amount of time. It was destroying the fabric of space surrounding the heart of Magic City. God Tree must have decided that blocking has gotten boring, so he might as well counterattack. Using one branch fortified by the rich spiritual power flowing throughout his body, he stabbed the king of sea beasts right in the chest. It was a bloodbath. Yuziyu was the first one to make the king bleed. He hates that he is going up against a monster without originality, a beast that relies on mimicry. God Tree decided to wrap his electrifying roots all around the king's body. He raised the fake elephant out of the water and into the skies. God Tree intends to baptize this copycat in his newest divine skill, Thunder Execution. The regal power of electricity swallowed the king of sea beasts in painful punishment. Using an electric move against a water type is always super effective. While frying up the monster, it started shedding its flabby skin all over the place. It looked like his entire body was being erased bit by bit. When the Thunder Execution finally ran its course, the king reverted to its first puny form down on the ground. The elephant and the empress watched as the God Tree easily dealt with an enemy that gave them hell. You looked around at the degree of destruction this coastal city endured. It was much higher compared to his battle with Australith. To supplement that problem, he invoked his spell to populate the metropolis with trees. The entire heart of Magic City has turned into a forest with towering foliage as high as skyscrapers. Civilians who remained stranded in the ruined city felt immense gratitude that this supposed enemy was the one who saved them. Let's look at the state of the Freedom Federation, where the Octopus King was efficiently uprooting buildings using 8 tentacles. This Sea King was basically moving unimpeded by man-made structures. After removing the pesky buildings on the way, the flood of seawater followed. It was code red at the Freedom Federation Military Command Center. 5 cities have been destroyed already. The rate of destruction was too fast, and they're only receiving information from the White House now. They were being informed that the demonic tree of the Federation had stepped up to defeat one of the 7 Sea Kings. They're essentially in the clear now. Unlike the Federation, the Freedom Federation does not have such a powerful beast to protect the people. A chance for victory is slim. But if you ask the scientific mind of this nation, he will disagree with the notion that they don't have a powerful mutant beast. The victor hasn't been decided yet, and they're flying in Godzilla as a representative. The reptilian kaiju immediately made an impactful entrance. He was dropped right in front of the Octopus King so the battle can start right away. As far as the scientist was concerned, the battle is just beginning. They have freaking Godzilla on their side, for Christ's sake. In Africa, the Crabby Twin King was running rampant with impunity. But a different challenger has stepped up. An apparition made up of pure spirit energy was there to protect the land. It was the ghost of a golden Jesus versus an oversized crab. Inside the apparition was the man that the indigenous people were worshipping. The man on the stone throne. We've already been introduced to the fighting force of Australia. Today, they have the same enemy as the rest of the world. Kangaroo Beast yelled at his troops to not let this group of lousy, smelly fishes and shrimps come close to the inner lands. The Dragon King wanted to argue that every single being is just a creature that evolved from the seas. As the battle was starting to heat up, The Sea King felt something snap. He felt the spirit power of the King of Sea Beasts disappear, signaling that one of the 7 kings must have been defeated. Dragon King started sweating at the thought of the inner lands having the power to go against the 7 seas. Back in Magic City, Lin Ziyi wanted to explore the newly sprouted Sea of Trees in the middle of the ruined metropolis. This is a forest created by the demonic tree, just based on the scale of this conception. She admitted that humans are far inferior to that entity. Alone in the middle of a mysterious place, she heard a childish voice pointing her teleportation out. Turning around, she saw a normal kid sitting casually on a rock. If you look closely, this kid has some powerful eyes and a very witty look. That's because he's the owner of this forest. Lin Ziyi, the prodigy, did not expect to encounter the demonic tree up close and personal. Who knows what happened inside that mysterious forest after their meeting? For now, God Tree's human form is still under development. Shi Yaoling was already waiting for him to come back. It was a surprise to see her master in a new form while carrying an unconscious Lin Ziyi. That's a crime.
FBI, open up!
The Empress asked him why he has the appearance of the kid, and that's simply because he was testing out a new ability. She found the transformation excellent though. He does look like a human. Well, that's because he's using a hallucinogenic effect on his own body. Anyone who sees him will think that he's human. But he can't stray too far away from the main body for now. As he assimilates back to his original form, God Tree wants to get down to business. The utmost priority for now is figuring out how to deal with all the sea beasts that they captured. He inspected a mutant giant turtle in the second order of transcendence. This guy was responsible for submerging the city with tide call, but except for his high defense, he doesn't have any notable abilities. The same goes for the stupid-looking fish that did not look beastly at all. As for the starfish that looks like he lives in Bikini Bottom, God Tree doesn't even know what to say. Most of the captive sea beasts were useless and not worthy of assimilating with the group. Ziyu just decided to go straight to the most important and interesting one. The king of the sea beasts, with its absolute evolution and innate talent. It's essentially immortal and can copy the skills of other creatures. It's actually saved God Tree's attacks on its arsenal. God Tree was surprised to see that this guy was starting to evolve in a similar path to him. Based on Shi Yaoqing's report, this monster only took a few minutes to evolve into the giant elephant. It seems like the bizarre monster will need more than a year before he can complete his God Tree mimicry evolution. This evolution path will merge with the abilities he learned previously. You could only wonder if this thing could become a real willow tree like him. There's also the possibility of devouring the rare beast to obtain this powerful innate talent. Yuzi decided to keep his options open for now, and as for the rest of the useless captives, they could become juicy evolution points. A swordfish was worth 5,000 evolution points, a mutant crocodile was 3,000, a mutant lobster equals 1,000, and a mutant crab was worth 2,500. God Tree's evolution points stockpile has reached 18.7 million points. He can now freely initiate the coveted 4th order evolution. The system confirms his progress to level 4. 10 million evolution points were spent. A beam of energy shot out into the skies. God Tree wanted to leave his protection up to Shi Yaoqing as he broke through to the next level. 10 million evolution points worth of power shown in full display for everyone in Magic City to see. White Jade Elephant was also there to witness such a massive event. The giant could actually transform to a cuddlier size. He thought that the majestic spiritual power of the God Tree was truly enviable. Shi Yaoqing and this cute elephant had teamed up in a life and death battle, but they hadn't been properly introduced to each other yet. White Jade Elephant came from the Celestial Mountain. He insisted that he's just an ordinary beast who fights corruption. A breakthrough to the 4th order really was a sight to behold. The massive amount of energy released into the world could be felt all the way to the deserts of the western region. Steve felt the reverberations in the air and knew that the God Tree was undergoing a breakthrough. The mythical bird of Tiananyu Mountain also felt the disturbance in the world's balance. The flamboyant bird did not expect the energy fluctuations to reach all the way to this place. Relative powers in the northern region also received the signal of the breakthrough. God Tree is the real Mr. Worldwide. Diving into the deep waters of the ocean, the imminent change coming to the world was also apparent. The big boss of the invasion in deep hibernation was forced to wake up and address the issue on the surface up above. The gigantic island whale knows that there is someone trying to break through the fourth order of transcendence, but the overall concentration of energy has far surpassed what's required to reach that level. For the sake of his mission, the mainland should not have a Tier 4 strongman at this point in time. He needs to act fast before it's too late. The remaining survivors of Magic City burn the image of the gargantuan God Tree glowing in power in their minds. But the next part of the breakthrough process is not really something you want to watch up close. Dark skies parted and have given way to the entrance of heavenly thunder. Even the heavens were pouring their power to be a part of a legendary level up. While the heavenly thunder was tempering God Tree's new body, two massive threats were lurking in the background. The Seahorse King and Conch King have made their way to Magic City in response to their fallen comrade. They have now seen just how powerful the creature that killed one of them really is. There's no better time to get rid of such a threat than when it was busy breaking through. When the Sea King duo made their presence known, the Empress and the Elephant were the first to notice. Two beings with huge spiritual power are approaching, judging from the sheer pressure. There is no doubt that two kings of the seven seas have come to meddle. Two of the strongest beasts of the deep are now approaching you sea of trees. White Jade Elephant admitted that they are no match against the encroaching threat. It's hard to tell if they can even escape or not. God Tree has not completed the process yet, but the Sea Kings might kill everyone in one hit. At the rate of Yu's progress, it would take at least an hour for him to wake up. Seeing that the elephant was starting to freak out, Xiao Qing had to step up and calm everything down. Seeing as she just pushed her purple flames to be combat ready, her course of action was obvious. She wanted White Jade Elephant to think of something else. If he wants to escape, those Sea Kings would not even bother stopping him. Their target was not the elephant nor the Empress. They were going for God. The God Tree, that is. Xiao Qing was ready to stand on business. Later, when she dies, no one will stop these Sea Kings. It will be too late for the elephant to leave then. This guy was not ready for this intense fighting spirit at all. But when push comes to shove, the little elephant would take a risk and follow the Empress into battle. The Seahorse King wanted to start this battle with a bang, a literal one. He was going to do that by trying to disrupt the breakthrough with the high-pressure water whirlpool blow. Even though Xiao Qing primarily uses flames as a weapon, she would not bow down to fire's natural enemy. She pushed her purple flame to the limit and crashed against the whirlpool of water. Emo Seahorse did not expect that a human would interrupt this supposedly easy mission. Conch King was not going to let that slide. He hated it when someone got in their way. The Conch King's own vile concoction of bodily fluids traveled to the air, aiming for the pesky human obstructing their plan. Xiao Qing was already struggling with the first attack, and here comes another one from a different angle. A mixture of high-pressure water and whatever it is that an overgrown sea bug could launch assaulted the Empress's flame shield. But she pulled through by some miracle. She managed to burn and evaporate through the combined assault. And when she flew out to the other side, her massive spiritual flame sword had already been invoked and ready to slash. Seeing this incoming attack, Conch King just laughed hysterically. He believed that he was the creature with the strongest defense of all. The oversized water bug just stood there relying on his thick shell, a very fatal mistake as Xiao Qing had enough power to do some serious damage.
Emotional damage!
But when one Sea King fumbles, the other one has picked up the slack. The Emo Seahorse moved at blinding speeds to sneak in the decisive blow. Thankfully, this was not a 1 versus 2. The numbers are equal now that White Jade Elephant has gone all in. The running tackles out of nowhere knocked the Emo Seahorse out of sorts. It turns out that this giant elephant was quite a gentleman, as he wouldn't let a woman risk her life alone. At the World Conference, leaders of nations were struggling to come to an agreement on what action everyone should take. Some want to give up on coastal cities and pull back to inner lands to reorganize, but that would certainly cause food shortages and internal strife. It's gotten so bad that they are considering sacrificing civilians to ensure the continuation of human civilization. Tough times require tough choices, and morality might have to take a backseat. The Federation leaders stayed quiet throughout the whole meeting. Meanwhile, in Magic City, the accumulation of spiritual power is starting to hit its peak. The Bureau also detected the presence of the two Sea Kings that had entered the city. It's a mystery why the demonic tree would choose such an inconvenient time to break through. Those kings are obviously wary of his growth. That's why this is the perfect moment to attack to nip the problem in the bud. The entire world is under siege by the forces of the deep, yet there's nothing that humanity can do. After establishing some visuals, the Bureau has also captured the presence of a human amongst the chaos. It was Xiao Ling and her spirit wing. The Bureau chief could not even fathom what was happening because such a genius had been fighting to buy the demonic tree time. And yet here she was, serious as can be, pouring her heart out and putting her life on the line. Even with the inherent disadvantage of using fire against water, she was giving it her all. With her spiritual flame gigantic sword, she intends to cleave through this emo seahorse. With grit and tenacity, she managed to close the gap for a more advantageous position. Her attacks actually managed to hurt the Sea King. That flame is not weak at all. Seahorse King realized that they couldn't underestimate this woman. From a human perspective, she can be considered first-rate. On the other side of the field, a contest for raw power was happening between two heavyweights. White Jade Elephant raised the danger levels with his piercing tusks. It pushed the Conch King right where he belongs, to the sea. Next comes the deadly finisher that the sky-piercing hoof offers. The overgrown bug responded with a blast of sulfuric acid in the nick of time. If the sky-piercing hoof could shatter space, then it could certainly push through acid. Overall, that exchange ended with what looks like a draw. Conch King did not expect his absolute defense to buckle after just one stomp. But White Jade Elephant wasn't looking so hot either. The left side of his face and body got hit by the acid and is currently burning his flesh away. Conch King's pride in his defense was hurt, and he warned the elephant to not look down on creatures from the sea. But Whitey wanted to insist that sea creatures are the scum of the earth. He unleashed another accumulation of spiritual power in the form of a ray of light. Back to the Empress, she has conjured up multiple light butterflies to fry the seahorse. But it was starting to look grim as the stream shield went up on the opponent's side. It would eventually compress to form a stream armor, coating the Sea King's entire body with flowing water. When the beast rushed in, the Empress was forced to try her best to block. Considering the difference in size and raw power, she was on the receiving end of an unfair exchange. The Seahorse King was starting to get frustrated as they had wasted far too much time instead of killing the God Tree. To supplement that problem, he trapped the Empress inside a spherical stream shield of high-pressure water. This was a skill meant for defense, but it was cleverly used as a trapping technique. Next comes the money shot. Globules of destructive liquid started populating the air around the Sea King. Innumerable shots of stream cannon went straight for Xiao Qing. This is where her inherent speed and smaller hitbox provided an advantage in dodging, but the sphere would not be a death trap if the attack ended there. Looking behind her, she realized that the Sea King was using the stream shield to bounce the stream cannons back for another round. It was too late to try and dodge the incoming forces. The spherical nature of the stream shield was able to concentrate the scattered attack in the middle where the pesky human could be crushed. The job was done. The emo seahorse could finally proceed with the original plan to stop the God Tree's breakthrough. Even from afar, the pressure and spiritual energy density were a sight to behold, but this was terrifying for those who oppose it. The Seahorse King knows that they cannot delay this any longer. Before getting a concentrated attack off, his face was pushed in by a fiery meteor. That sudden attack took out one of his eyes in a majorly painful manner. The Flame Empress managed to survive the aquatic barrage and executed a perfectly timed sneak attack. The Sea King was only annoyed earlier, now he's furious. He would love to kill this human right here and now. To do that, the Sea Horse is going to need the Conch King's participation to use that skill. The elephant and the Empress were clueless as to what was going to happen, but they knew that it could not be good for either of them. These two kings of the seas can combine their might seamlessly for a critical joint attack. This is their most powerful combination skill. They really want these pests and that mutated tree to explode into pieces together. The elephant and Empress duo were frozen in place as the energy stockpile continued to grow. When the attack was finally unleashed at incredible speeds, the Sea Kings watched for the inevitable collapse. Seeing that fearsome force come closer, the first and only thing she could think of was protecting her slumbering master at all costs. Big Bro really chose to sleep in the middle of war. On the outskirts of Magic City, the human soldiers were engaging the small fries like it was the main event. The group is led by the Golden Masked Soldier. Their primary aim is to not let the enemies advance deeper into the metropolis. In the Spirit Power Research Institute, the advancing pattern of the sea beasts has slowed down. The Transcendent in their respective territories are holding the enemies back effectively. But looking at the bigger picture, all they are doing is slowing down the inevitable fall of humanity. If they fail to deal with those overpowered Sea Kings, it will be all for nothing. Regardless of the bigger picture, the Golden Masked Soldier and his unit will do their job. And right now, their job is beating up sea beasts with no mercy. And if you put them against the smaller mobs, they really were quite amazing at it. However, the encroaching sea beasts were not only relying on raw power, but they were also relying on superior numbers. No matter how much the humans kill, it really seems like there is no end to the aquatic stampede. But for a brief moment, beasts and humans alike took a pause as an overwhelming aura swept through the entire area. The soldiers felt it, the monsters felt it. Everybody did. There is a powerful, suffocating, and horrifying spiritual power originating near their battlefield. Gold Mask was sure that it was coming from the heart of the city where the Flame Empress decided to dive in. He could not even imagine what kind of monster she was facing right now. The combination attack was locked and loaded. The Empress and the elephant positioned themselves right in front of the stationary god tree. Whitey knows that if that attack goes off, blocking it would be tantamount to suicide. Not just the god tree, even the city and the humans behind will all die. But Shi Yaoqing is not a coward. She fully intends to take that kill shot with full power. In this crucial matter, she fully understands the stakes. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the twin stream cannon was released into the world. The Empress and the burnt elephant pushed their remaining spiritual energy to the limit to conjure the sturdiest barriers that they could muster. Their sphere of defense was put to the ultimate test as it was swallowed by a combined attack of two Sea Kings. In the face of such a powerful offense, anyone would buckle no matter how hard you stay upright. White Jade Elephant's massive shield was already starting to show signs of breaking and cracking. The impact was so powerful that it was tearing Shi Yaoqing's flesh away bit by bit. Her internal injuries from the increasing pressure were getting worse by the second as she threw up blood. A stalwart sphere versus a catastrophic beam. I wonder who will win? The defense was trying hard to endure, but the offense was also pouring their everything into this one move. After a few moments of successfully resisting and containing the damage from the twin stream cannon, the momentum proved to be too much. The attack had concluded, and the view was obscured by the steam resulting from a clash of water and fire. The foundation of the city was completely ruined, but the god tree and the area near him were successfully protected. When the steam started clearing up, the White Jade Elephant could be seen passed out on the floor with no energy to spare. Shi Yaoqing was in the same boat, but she managed to stay conscious after such an intense full-power collision. It looks like the elephant protected the Empress at the last moment. With these pests out of juice, the Sea Kings finally have a clear shot at the god tree. Seeing another one of those absurdly devastating attacks being cooked up, Shi Yaoqing got up for another round even though she had nothing left. The only thing keeping her upright and her eyes open was the will to protect her master. It was the first time that the white jade elephant had seen something like this. But from the enemy's perspective, this is just a foolish action by a foolish human. Shi Yaoqing does not care about her own life. Protecting the master is at the top of her priority. She would do it, even if that's the last thing she does. When she first learned about the master's history, he died. At that time, she heard the shouting of the humans and the cries of the beasts. They went on endlessly. She just doesn't see the sense of it all. Is the battle for boundaries really that important? Whether it's the humans that are trying to expand their territories endlessly, or the sea beasts that have surfaced to invade the continent to unify their race, all of these battles, bloodshed, and grief are completely meaningless. With that being said, Shi Yaoqing was certain that the only one who could stop the world's insanity was her master. Even if she must lay her life down to protect him, she would do so without a second thought. That's because Yu Ziyu is not just her master. He is also the only guardian of this planet. Another twin stream cannon was unleashed, and there were no barriers to block it this time around. With a barrier or none, Shi Yaoqing pushed herself like she had never done before as she stood in the way. With raw power and however little droplets of spiritual energy she had left, the Empress persevered and blocked. She was doing her best to redirect any harmful energy heading for the master. Yu Ziyu really picked an unfortunate time to take this step to another level. White Jade Elephant has not been acquainted with the Empress for too long, but he feels just how pure her heart is. Even when her consciousness has left, her body remains upright, full of pride as a protector. The emo seahorse looked at this incredulous sight and scoffed. He thinks that all her efforts are meaningless as they can just unleash another one. Before passing out completely, Shi Yaoqing asserted that what she did here was not meaningless at all. She had already succeeded in doing what she set out to do, buying enough time for the main event. She's a real one for that. Her limp body started free falling down from the sky, much to the elephant's concern. Thankfully, the roots that we all know and love were there to catch her when she fell. The branches have turned to a sickening crimson shade as they flow with the wind. Seeing the big boss in action means bad news for the arrogant Sea Kings, and looking at the God Tree's bald red orb with eyes full of fury, you know that things would be different from here on out.
That's why he's the GOAT!
The one stationary God Tree is up and about again. Finally, the White Jade Elephant can have a good rest after all that he has suffered. Shi Yaoqing also felt relief wash over her as the warm branches gently move her body. God Tree's physical transformation made him a lot spookier. He radiated an eerie vibe with his blood-red tendrils. The first order of business for the God Tree was to release a gentle rain of life. It immediately helped the injured allies to recover their health and strength. They can finally rest up and leave the rest of the trash to the boss. White Jade Elephant swiftly ran away with Shi Ling in tow so as not to get in the way. Only God Tree and the two Sea Kings were left in the heart of Magic City. This is not a good development for the sea beasts. God Tree's spirit power is downright horrifying. Even the arrogant Conch King was starting to doubt if they could win. Yu Ziyu felt insulted that the overgrown bug would even ask that question. The answer is already set in stone. The Sea Kings are not even a threat at all. It's obvious just based on the pressure that the God Tree was emitting. As it stands, these aquatic monsters have no choice but to fight, so they bring out their hidden beast form. In this form, the emo seahorse can blast multiple stream cannons all at once. The same goes for the oversized sea bug and his strengthened sulfuric acid that looks a lot like piss. Multiple vortexes of superpowered attacks were upon the God Tree. He wanted to show the disparity in strength by using a simple route to defend. In one smooth sweep, these calamitous attacks were neutralized completely, but the excess force caused them to ricochet in random directions. The rest of the surviving infrastructures of Magic City were consumed by explosions. It was a magnificent apocalyptic light show with God Tree as the conductor. The Sea Kings have never seen someone this powerful before. They think that they may stand a little bit of a chance if they choose to work as one again. That plan did not escape Yu Ziyu's all-seeing eye though. A Sea King duo started pairing up their ultimate skills to fire an empowered twin-string cannon. The thick beam of changing lights blasted forward in hopes of taking out the big boss. Yuzi braced himself and took the brunt of the attack directly. As he was tanking the most powerful skill that two of the 7 Sea Kings possess, he was trash-talking their weaknesses. Unbeknownst to the enemies, he'd already set up the broken feathers of flame in the surrounding area of the battlefield. When the ruthless technique triggered the chain reaction, flames shot out from multiple angles to cook some seafood. God Tree did not remove his eyes from the cookout though. Because of that, he managed to spot the Conch King in his roll-in mode. With his shell in battle mode, it would not be that easy to burn this sea bug to death. It also possesses the ability to attack while maintaining that impressive defense. It was like Magic City was being hit with another wave of tidal disruptions. Deep in the ground, the emo seahorse has been miserably buried in soil and dust. His eyes are giving up. This was an impossible battle to win. Conch King tried to be clever and attack from close combat, only to end up like this. God Tree crushed and juiced the life out of one of the Sea Kings like a citrus fruit. There is just one thing that Yuzi can't understand. These beasts could not even live on land, so there should be a point in trying to conquer the surface world. Sensing the next death in this battle would be him, Seahorse Beast King hurriedly ran for the water to escape. He hadn't even gotten too far when he was caught and bound by the roots. Yuzi would not let these pests that tried to kill him in a critical junction escape. He continued to tighten the grip all around the body of the poor Sea King. Getting crushed to death is a miserable way to go. This faces evidence of that. God Tree just wanted some answers to his very valid questions. The emo seahorse had the audacity to laugh in his grim situation. He knows that he can torment the God Tree by withholding answers. He just wants to die quickly. God Tree doesn't like this game, so he just sent the guy to see Beast Hell. The method he used to send these food ingredients to their deaths was through the freezing ice age. This way, you can see their lifeless bodies encased in a clear ice formation. Right after dealing with the sea beast duo, the sky has mysteriously gone dark. The skies turned pitch black and even God Tree had no idea why this was happening. From the darkness, a massive body emerged to show itself and confront the God Tree. Shout out to flying whales, gotta be one of my favorite monsters. The whale, with a gigantic scale to the point of carrying an entire island on its back, has made its entrance. Looking at the battlefield, it saw 2 of its soldiers frozen solid and lifeless. God Tree felt a little wary as he did not like wherever this was going. This is his first time seeing a whale that flies in the sky, and that size makes it even more unbelievable. The beast towered over the entire Magic City. It was simply huge beyond reasonable limits. Through the live feed that the Bureau has installed, they also saw the size of this monstrosity. They had no idea where this thing came from, and the only certain fact is that it was a whale. Let's zoom out of Magic City and pay attention to the Freedom Federation, which is basically America. This nation had a different way of dealing with the Sea King. They sent their own kaiju to fight a kaiju. Godzilla versus Octopus King. Their fighting lizard even had the signature atomic breath to delete everything along its path. Octopus King was forced to either take it directly to the face or let his tentacles get messed up by blocking. It was a lose-lose situation, but the Octopus King managed to survive. And this Godzilla-looking fool is named Zero, a transcendent third-order cyborg beast created by science. The aquatic powerhouse did not expect that humans had already developed such an advanced biological weapon. While lost in the sauce in his own battle, Octopus King was shocked to feel a familiar aura grazing the surface world. Twin King also felt the same emergence of the Prophet, who was supposed to be in deep sleep all the way from Africa. Another one of the kings, the only queen of the 7 seas, a peak third-order transcendent mermaid, has become worried at the Prophet's unexpected appearance. Sea Beast King, Seahorse King, and Conch King. 3 of their top monarchs have all been killed in one location. That must have been why the Prophet decided to intervene. Humans from cities away from the coasts watched as the biggest creature in history glides in the skies of the Federation. was blocking out the sky of half the city. The sheer scale of that monster inspired hopelessness in the common folk. The mysterious giant moving smoothly in the air, or a tree on the way to true godhood, take your pick. The prophet's eyes looked like they contained the universe itself. This whale looks like Gojo. He felt the waves of God Tree's spirit power all the way down in the deepest depths of the planet. Now that God Tree can also feel the enemy's power, it is different than anything else that he has encountered before. He asked the prophet if he was the boss of the kings laying siege on land. He wanted to know what their real goal really was, as obtaining more land would not even benefit them. The prophet simply answered that they were moving up because the water could no longer contain them. As the spiritual aura recovers, countless creatures will arise, and the continents are required for the sea creatures to thrive on shore to reproduce. Then they will eventually complete the evolution process and adapt to living on land. So just because they want to live on land, they are exterminating all the other creatures. The prophet believes that nature is just survival of the fittest. It's been the norm for humans, just like the God Tree. Much to our boy's surprise, this monster knows that he was a human in his previous life and his name was Yuziyu. He never told anyone his old name, so the mystery of this prophet goes a lot deeper. The exaggerated whale was gracious enough to introduce himself properly simply as Darkness. God Tree was growing restless. If this aquatic mammal doesn't tell him everything he wants to know, he could forget about leaving this place. As emotions were running high, so was the tide all around the city as it slowly made an isolating sphere around the heart of magic. Now comes a battle on a scale that the world has never seen before. Darkness pulled up the sphere to separate them from the outside world and asked God Tree if he was afraid of his secrets being known by humans. If those beasts that are under his command knew that he's actually human, there's no telling what would happen. Darkness himself was curious about what their reactions would be like. Hearing those blatant provocations pushed Yuziyu to his limit. As his body takes on another shape, he wants to make sure that no one will ever find out. He'll simply do that by killing Darkness with his regal combat form's own two hands. This Darkness is not someone so easily intimidated by form changes though. Inside the gigantic isolation sphere, the clash of the titans was underway. Inside the sphere and all around the sphere, the spirit power was immense. Shi Yaoqing was dreading for her master's fate. God Tree opened up the combat with the 9-wood arboreal roots right away. Darkness promptly responded with a sonar wave to disrupt, but Yuziyu had a lot more control of his attack to maneuver around and get to his target. Everything in their surrounding was starting to crumble into dust. Darkness acknowledged that God Tree is too powerful and he'll have to go all out from the start. He's going to do that through the bulges of pure power all around his colossal body. Darkness moves a bit sluggishly, but Yuziyu has a feeling that tanking this next attack would be a bad idea. With Darkness's next attack, his aim is to turn the God Tree into dead branches and leaves. The enormous whale rained down terrifying quantities of concentrated power. The sheer amount and intensity of the attack swallowed the God Tree whole. The only response that Yuziyu could think of was to bust out his gigantification. With this ability, he could match the enemy's size while maintaining his superior mobility and arsenal. Now that they are on the same footing with regard to scale, God Tree can finally go sicko mode. Doesn't this feel like the play fights you had in your head when you were just a kid? One punch on the posterior got the whale's eyes almost bursting with blood. Accounting for gigantification and God Tree's raw strength, every punch hits like no other. He was not done yet. Following the physical beatdown is an elemental one as the earth element manipulation has come into play. Yuziyu stabbed an earth formation right into the same spot that he punched. Darkness was starting to realize that he might have bitten off more than he could chew with God Tree's diverse arsenal. Using the branches and roots, he also debuted the Tree World Advent technique to hold this seafood in place. Whatever happens from this point on would be a product of Yuziyu's panic and rage. He brought down the flying whale to the ground, not minding that he would terraform half of the city in the process. The earth element earlier was not enough, and all of the elements that he could control needed to come out too. Each of Godtree's branches was holding individual elemental attacks powered by an endless well of spiritual energy. This colorful attack tortured the darkness with every painful feeling possible. This started as an equal fight, but it quickly turned into a one-sided slaughter. Darkness wallowed and cried in pain as every elemental attack possible wrecked his colossal body. After catching a brief moment of respite, he retaliated using the volcanic formation on his island. The prophet pushed himself to the limit and unleashed a scorching lava eruption into the world. Yuziyu was not expecting that at all. A deep sea beast is actually capable of using the opposing element, and use it he did. A torrential rain of skin-melting lava flooded the city, replacing the seawater from earlier. It looked as though Godtree was trapped in the whale's fiery domain. Lava levels that swallowed buildings surged and flowed to every inch of the ground. Even Darkness had to admit that he might have overdone it out of desperation. The entire land has been covered in lava. No matter how powerful the Godtree is, wood melts under extreme heat, leaving nothing behind. The ice wall that Yuziyu masterfully created is also starting to melt. It will crumble any second now. This is the whale's cue to retreat back to his home court. But the lava did not do what it was supposed to do. Yuziyu still has the latest elemental control that he obtained in his back pocket, Thunder. Thunder execution split the skies open to make the colossal monster yield to its absolute power. After a few moments of painful wailing, the prophet seemingly passed out. Not only did Godtree not die in the lava, he thrived on it, he adapted and made it his own. The same could not be said for the prophet. The lava came from his own volcano, but his body was not built for this type of heat. Yuziyu continued his interrogation pertaining to what this monster knew about him. He also wanted to know what exactly this darkness that he's been hearing a lot these days. This island whale is not the big boss. Their master is omniscient. Godtree is just wasting his time with this question, as that master will soon descend. Only then will everyone understand everything. The prophet can only tell them this much. As for the rest, they'll be meaningless even if he answers. On that note, the whale's fins have transformed into legs. With a form that makes it a lot easier to traverse land, he continued to praise his so-called master who will rule over everything with strength. Godtree still has questions, but it looks like his playtime with this aquatic mammal has to conclude now. A whale with legs coalescing energy on its massive mouth was a bizarre sight. But this incoming attack was no joke at all. Yuziyu stood on the opposite side, bracing himself for impact. He wants this prophet to go back and tell his master that messing with the Godtree means an all-out war until annihilation. The spherical barrier separating the gigantic fighters from the rest of the world was shattered by an even more powerful concentration of energy beam. The whale was being sent back to the deep in the most painful way possible. The uninterrupted flow of spiritual power was enough to push and mold the creature back to where he came from. He came in from the skies, grew legs for the earth, and now he was back to the ocean. Yuziyu just played with that aquatic mammal without even breaking a sweat. The Empress and the elephant watched carefully until the conclusion had been drawn. Godtree has won. Shi Yaoqing's efforts were not in vain. The Bureau also witnessed the dominance of the Godtree's victory. The chief reckons that there's no longer any creature in this world that can defeat that guy. In the Luo Kingdom, the Mermaid Queen and her battalion were the first ones to respond and issue a retreat back into the deep sea. She could no longer feel the prophet's life force, and that's bad news. Retreating is the prudent choice. The same thing was happening with the Twin King fighting against the ghost of Golden Jesus in Africa. So was the Godzilla versus Octopus King fight that was taking place in the Freedom Federation. Zero the Godzilla looked confused, but he did not give chase. All the humans cared about was that the sea beasts were starting to retreat back into the sea. That must mean that they won, right? These humans are useless. Man. The same scenario was happening in different parts of the world. Australia is a little different though. The Flood Dragon King in charge of the invasion of the land down under was beaten quite severely. Aside from the Australith, there are more fourth-order transcendent anomalies lurking in this secretive continent, One of them came out for this occasion. This ancient anomaly decided to let the overgrown white lizard live so it could spread the word that Australia's overlord wants every beast in the sea to pledge allegiance, or he will assemble an army to counterattack.
We do not care.
Overall, this series of invasions has ended with the Sea Kings being bullied or killed. Back in the Misty Mountains, another significant event was starting to unfold. The dragon egg that a heavenly tribulation had cleansed was beginning to hatch. Its wings were firm and strong, ready to take on the wind. His whole body was packed full of power and vigor, fitting for a legendary beast. Wang Feng and his sister were having their reunion moment, and they got to share this extremely rare experience together. Wang Feng has been surrounded by beasts as of late, but he didn't expect to see something so majestic in his entire life. Anyone who laid eyes on this event knew that this was the birth of a legend. Ninetails was also quietly observing the hatching process from afar. You never really know what this one is thinking about at any given moment. Back in Magic City, the concrete jungle has turned into an actual jungle. All the sea beasts have retreated, but they will definitely come again at some other time. Just like Godtree's system said, the darkness is coming. What kind of creature it was still unknown. The only piece of info he knows is that the so-called Master's power is unfathomable. Things would have gone a lot differently today if it wasn't for Shi Yaoqing. And Godtree's gratitude is overflowing. She was just happy to serve the big boss. Also, there's another stranger here who hasn't been properly introduced to Yuziyu. He doesn't even know who this white elephant is, and neither do we. Seeing some unfamiliar beast helping them to the extent that he did was odd. A beast lending a helping hand to save humans is a rarity. But this guy is just a giant elephant from Celestial Mountain. He's a descendant of the so-called God, a god that will fight against the darkness. This cannot be a coincidence. Yuziyu's been hearing buzz around this darkness for some time now. Perhaps the elephant could help clear things up based on what he knows about the matter. According to Whitey, this darkness is not a living creature at all. It's more accurate to call it an energy form. Now that's a concept that Godtree has not considered. As for what kind of energy form it really is, Godtree should have an idea by now, as all living creatures have used this darkness before. Yuziyu is starting to form some inkling of an idea, and he is on the right track. That darkness is spirit power itself. Simply put, this planet is a perpetual motion machine that generates and emits spirit power outwards. This emitted power is absorbed by living creatures. The spirit power that didn't get absorbed will float away from this planet, so the amount inside the atmosphere won't overflow. But what about the spirit power of creatures that died? Usually you'd like to think that it just disseminates across the planet. But no, the spirit power of dead creatures floats to another world. The interior world. Below everyone's feet, the spirit energy of the dead gathers together. It will accumulate until it reaches an unimaginably horrifying state. It will develop its own thinking, form, and even desire. This thing will eventually and inevitably break out into the surface. The spirit power of all the creatures that died, that's the true face of darkness. Godtree wanted to know what would happen if it came to the current world. The spirit power between worlds will clash, the planet will split apart, and everything will descend into chaos. When the previous darkness appeared, all the experts in the world came together to erase it. After that, spirit power and darkness disappeared from the world. Because they are two sides of the same coin, both were erased from existence. You remember the records within the book of General Lee about the end of an epoch. Those accounts might be referring to the clash of two different spirit powers and the return to primordial chaos. But the darkness is projected to appear every 3,000 years, yet it's already rearing its ugly head now. If it were to descend, the world would surely end. Yuziyu doesn't even want to entertain that thought, because as long as it can be killed, everything becomes simpler. For now, Shi Yaoqing is to return to the human side as they will need her for the reconstruction efforts. Godtree will head back to the Misty Mountains and the elephant will stick around with the Empress. The sea beasts are already working for the darkness. The invasion this time must have been just to increase the number of killings to hasten the descent. It is ironic that if UZ wants to get stronger, he has to kill, but the more he kills, the stronger darkness becomes. In the deep blue waters of the ocean, the prophet came to address his remaining kings. The invasion was a failure, and they lost 3 kings. This puts them in a bad spot. Even the Flood Dragon King was only alive after getting heavily injured in Australia. The prophet took responsibility for being too hasty and underestimating the forces on land. After he dies, he doesn't want the remaining kings to invade the land again. They must first unify the entire world of water. They must be patient for the Lord's recovery. The Sea Kings understood where he was coming from and promised to uphold his final order. The prophet, a seemingly invincible colossus, has reached his final moments. Even in death, he intends to serve the darkness, the entity that lurks in the deepest depths of the ocean where no light shines. The darkness is ravenous. It takes everything that the dead can offer. No matter how strong the prophet was, he was just another piece to be consumed once he outlived his usefulness. Today is that day. He will finally be one with their Lord in every sense of the word. The gang is back in the comfort of their home in the Misty Mountains. Yuzu's new and improved frame traverses the lands with impeccable speed. Every beast under his command lowers their heads at the presence of the big boss. There are wolves and serpents, and of course, the core group, his generals. Everyone in the inner circle gives their master a warm welcome back home. Long Feng and his sister were also lurking in the corner. It was her first time seeing the God Tree up close. Yuzu also notices the newest addition to the team. Its strong wings kick up stronger winds. The newly hatched Thunder Dragon looks as though it skipped being a baby and reached the first order of transcendence right out of the egg. Big-eared Monkey also reached the first order, while Three-Headed Snake, Two-Headed Wolf, and Jade Scorpion have grinned into the second order. The Thunder Dragon is already starting to learn how to speak in the human tongue. It has elemental immunity and a powerful dragon breath, Dragon's physique for defense, Dragon's roar to control the weather, and Thunder Devourer are self-explanatory. Yuzu is pleased that this guy is finally hatched. Unknowingly, the Misty Mountain is welcoming a whole new generation, with everyone growing stronger. He hands the dragon a Thunder Flower to expand his growth even faster. The being from a legendary race will have a very long lifespan, and will inevitably dominate the world. God Tree intends to nurture this guy with every method available. The Thunder Dragon is very grateful that he's being valued so highly. Next, Yuzu calls Ching Gong, and Salmon quickly makes an appearance. God Tree tasks him with leading their territory expansion. He will subdue human cities along the way, but if they resist, they can say goodbye to their homes. But Ching Gong must remember to give preferential treatment to those who surrender peacefully. For those who resist, he can kill one to warn 100. The next task goes to the unearthly Divine Flower. She was tasked with increasing the quota for the sacrificial altar, effectively subduing more human powerhouses. She will do the job, but Divine Flower feels puzzled, as her master just finished cleaning up the threat from the sea easily. They shouldn't be in a hurry to increase their strength, unless there is an even stronger looming threat. Yuzu has a lot of ideas in his mind. Expanding territory is only the first step. They need to establish the Misty Mountain Research Institute. They are in dire need of creating an extraordinary place that far exceeds what this era is capable of. When Misty Mountains gain helpers from all over the world, they will no longer have to live passively. Once the darkness descends, it will no longer be the Misty Mountains resisting. It will be the entire world, all the creatures that want to continue living. Meanwhile, the Federation and their endless meetings are in shambles. They are terrified of the God Tree, given how strong he has become. They fear that if he decides to stop helping humans, they'll be done for. However, the leader keeps a level head and wants to get an opinion from a certain person's perspective. The higher-ups can't even think of anyone who understands the God Tree. Thankfully, their leader has a somewhat decent brain and brought her in, the Flame Empress, Shi Yaoling. The higher-ups finally understand. Whether it's the battle with Australith or the sea beast invasion, she was always at the front lines with the God Tree. The leader wants to get her perspective regarding this pressing issue. Shi Gaoling explains that the aura she felt from God Tree wasn't horror. It felt more like he was out of reach. It's akin to the relationship between humans and ants. That is the spot-on comparison, but based on that assessment, God Tree has the power to exterminate humanity on a whim. Based on everything that had happened, Shi Yaoling argues that shouldn't be the case. God Tree doesn't only possess basic wisdom like other beasts. He is already learning about human culture and its nuances, whether it's Australith or opening a trade for the essence of life, or this time, chasing the sea beasts away. It was evident that he only wants one thing. God Tree wants to become the new belief and conviction of humans, a deity that they all can rely on when push comes to shove. The dumbass higher-ups were finally realizing that God Tree is trying to coexist with humanity. The leader remains quiet, and his thoughts are unknown. While everyone is digesting Shi Yaoling's insights, someone barges into the room bearing bad news. They are receiving reports that the mist of the Misty Mountains is expanding at an extremely fast speed. Right now, it has already enveloped Half Moon City and Smoke City. Bro, Smoke City is just begging for that mist. This news of Misty Mountains expanding its territory is alarming. The mist is growing in all directions too. Even the Western Barrens and the northern borders are being swallowed. The leader admits that they don't have the capacity and power to resist currently. They have no other choice but to allow this expansion, because what else can they do? Mr. Federation leader did the sensible thing to do and ordered everyone not to clash with the beasts of Misty Mountains, while arranging accommodations for the citizens of the affected areas and paying close attention to the situation. Half Moon City protects their quiet urban life with a gigantic wall, given that they share borders with dangerous beasts. Right now, Qinggong stands before that barrier. Qinggong is living his attack on Titan Fantasy right now. Half Moon City is a sprawling metropolis, and its citizens have no idea what's about to happen. Their relatively peaceful lives were interrupted when the Mist Nation attacked. They're going to need an avatar or something. The warning system immediately blared its alarms as an impending beast wave was upon them. The transcendent soldiers in the area saw the mist and felt a shiver run down their spines. Add to that the silhouette of Qinggong's imposing body, and they have a very scary invasion on their hands. Qinggong introduced himself as the Elemental General of Misty Mountains, and from today onwards, they will be taking over this city. People who are not willing to submit will be allowed to leave peacefully, but the soldiers immediately opposed this idea, especially since the threat was coming from just a single guy. Qinggong smiled as his reinforcements made their dramatic entrance. He wasn't really alone. He didn't bring the first-string team members, but he brought a beastly army. Back in Bayou Canyon, Yuziyu is carefully assessing his current stockpile of evolution points. Looking back, he came to this world with only 0.1 evolution points in his pocket, but now he has about 10 million. Just like Drake said, started from the bottom, now we're here. After reaching the fourth order, he hasn't had the chance to check on his own arsenal. Opening his attribute panel, his abilities went into full display. Innate growth, Seed of Vitality, Thunder Control, and many more are at level 4. So are his mutated branch, Roots, Spirit Field, Mist Mastery, Hallucination, River of Earth, and everything else. All these mini divine skills are at the introductory stage, but they are mini divine skills for a reason. Overall, his arsenal can be described as luxurious. There is not a second creature in this world this stacked. If Yuziyu wants to advance further, he needs to polish all these abilities more. Mastery of Mist combined with an endless well of spirit power is the most useful right now. The range he could cover was outstanding, and it can also be paired with hallucination. He'd essentially separate the mist-covered areas from the rest of the world with no problem. Anywhere this ability can cover will belong to Misty Mountain. At Half Moon City, Qinggong and his army made quick work of the incompetent soldiers. He himself almost destroyed the stalwart wall by smashing one of the soldiers with sickening force. Whatever the god tree asks, this man will undoubtedly deliver with style and brutality. The inside of the city was already taken over by mutant rats, tempest wolves, and beast apes. The remaining stragglers were few and far between. They'd been beaten, but they weren't backing down. Shingon repeated that he would spare anyone who surrendered peacefully. Since that's pretty much a done deal, let's turn our attention to the magical Jasmine Valley. In this quaint little place, the prairie was in full bloom, and a mystical tree sat in the middle. This is the place where Ninetales was assigned. In front of her was an enemy that was no joke by any metric. It's a golden-spotted swallowtail butterfly, a transcendent second-order insect beast that is currently undergoing the process of evolution. That might be the case, but Ninetales knew better than to let her guard down. Back home, Thunder Dragon was trying to prove his strength in actual combat. He was about to go up against the second-order transcendent dream beast. Is that a freaking unicorn, my guy? But this unicorn is not all rainbows and sunshine. It could channel some dark energy through its single horn. The dragon and the unicorn clashed against each other. Both refused to lose the contest of sheer power. The Three Stooges were at a safe distance, watching the two beasts fight with everything they had. As the clash subsided, both of them remained relatively healthy. It looked like a definitive draw. God Tree was supervising the fight from behind, to make sure that no one got seriously harmed though. He was impressed that Thunder Dragon could stand his ground against a second-order dream beast. That's just a testament to a dragon's legendary potential. His power will only go higher from here. Yuziyu was satisfied, so he called both of his subordinates back to him. The unicorn and the dragon walked side by side, as if they weren't just trying to kill each other earlier. This unicorn dream beast was subdued just a few days ago. It's the same as the Thunder Dragon, in the sense that it can be categorized as a legendary creature. His growth from now on will also be limitless. Divine Flower came through to notify God Tree that the white fox from the Green Mound had arrived for a meeting. The little furry white fox lowered his head, while humbly greeting the big boss. The reason why Yuziyu called this guy over concerns the stalk of spirit herb that the fox tribe offered. There were supposed to be 9 leaves on the stalk, but there were only 8 when it got to his hands. This creation spirit herb can only exhibit its full potential if all 9 leaves are consumed, but one has already been secretly eaten. The white fox felt the pressure of the interrogation bearing down on him. God Tree just wanted to know who dared to do this, and the white fox better think his answer through before speaking.
Daddy, chill.
Even though he was slowly being grilled in his own sweat, White Fox honestly admitted that it was him who took a bite out of the herb. He did it back when he was but a young pup and didn't know better. After that, he was taught a very harsh lesson by his sister. He insisted that the fox tribe did not purposely damage the spirit herb to trick their master. Yuziyu was deliberating about the substantial size of the Green Mound tribe. If they nurtured this group properly, making a second Ninetales wouldn't be impossible. So he took out the spirit herb and handed it to the white fox. Since he already ate one of the leaves, he might as well eat everything else for the full effect. He ordered the white fox to maximize the absorption of the herb. He even granted 1 drop of life essence to fortify and stabilize the white fox throughout the process. The furry rule breaker gratefully accepted the blessing directly from the God Tree. Absorbing the life essence and spirit herb into his constitution made a few new marks slither in his body. Divine Flower commented that she was starting to feel a slight 9-tailed fox aura coming from this new kid. Speaking of 9-tailed foxes, the real Ninetales is back to report to her master. With her was the golden-spotted swallowtail butterfly, as if they were friends now. The butterfly laid her eyes on the God Tree for the first time and was thoroughly impressed. Just his sheer massive size alone was enough to bring most beasts to their knees. Divine Flower felt her heart skip a beat at the sight of such a beautiful butterfly. She loves cute things after all. Ninetales formally introduced this new addition to the team. The golden-spotted swallowtail butterfly successfully finished the breakthrough to the third order of transcendence. She's capable of beckoning a dazzling light that could shatter the skies. Proficient in merging with the void, can use ethereal blades of light and can channel a luminous beam to obliterate everything. This is the first time that a full-on third-order transcendent was joining the team peacefully. Godtree welcomed the rookie personally by going down and interacting through his demi-human form. Little Panda was actually here the whole time. This little butterfly did not impress him at all. All he does is eat, drink, and sleep, and upon waking up, he already reached the third order. Divine Flower is also on the verge of her breakthrough. Godtree wanted to get an update on the status of the sacrificial altar now. She listed that 28 human champions have signed the contracts with her. One of them is at the peak of the second order, the Iron Fist Tyrant. 6 are at the mid-stage of the second order, while the rest are at the early stages of the second order. Only 28 was too low. It's way less than Godtree anticipated. They need to keep recruiting. The more people, the better. Also, he wanted these new powerhouses to expand their forces swiftly. If needed, the Misty Mountains would gladly offer some assistance. This urgency that Divine Flower had been feeling was bugging her, so she decided to ask Godtree directly. This master of theirs has been eager to expand rapidly, so she asked if they are preparing to face an unknown enemy. Yuziu decided that there was no point in telling his people now, and they should just focus on their assigned tasks. Divine Flower had no choice but to suck it down and stay quiet. The Elemental General Qinggong has finished his job and has come back to report what happened in Half Moon City. The metropolis has been subdued, and as Godtree commanded, no buildings were destroyed and only those who refused to surrender were expelled. Qinggong also went ahead and detained all the scientific researchers in the city. Yuziu could always rely on this guy to deliver above and beyond. He wanted to meet the scientists while Qinggong continued the territory expansion. Yuziu will do everything so as not to let the darkness destroy this world. He will gather countless allies, and together, everyone will stand against destruction. The only drive pushing him forward is the will to not be defeated by the forces of evil. Divine Flower and the rest of his people don't know that, though. Let's go overseas and watch something unfold in the Luo Kingdom. The Luo Kingdom soldiers are in an intense chase scene, trying to catch a fleeing foreigner. It was the Dogman genetic mutant that Xiao Ling inducted into the Dark Assembly. In his hands was what looked like a baby swaddled in fabric. The soldiers tried their best to close the distance and fire fatal attacks at the intruder. Those attacks weren't too bad. These guys can be considered elites in their field. But the Dogman managed to tank the hit, even though it left a gigantic crater with him in the middle. This essentially halted his escape plan. He's now being forced to go toe-to-toe with his pursuers. The fabric was removed, and inside was an ugly baby with animal ears. That's a face that only a mother can love. Dogman thinks that the threats coming from these soldiers are laughable, as they are the ones dying tonight. Back in Bayou Canyon, where Yuziu has taken root, the system sounded the alarms that the third wave of spiritual energy tide is imminent. Numerous new races will soon emerge, and inheritances and bloodlines will also be awakened. However, the system can see that Yuziu himself was not quite ready for that yet. This imminent third round of spiritual energy tide came out of left field, and you didn't even notice the signs at all. When the second wave rose, all things evolved significantly. It hastened the world's evolutionary pace by decades, altering the world's food chain. This incoming third wave was a mystery, but it will surely be significant. Now that he's at the fourth order of transcendence, this third wave would be a baptism that will transform him once again. He asked the system why in the world was it arriving so soon. It's because the darkness has finally sensed his presence and decided to trigger the tide prematurely. It fears the threat that Yuziu's growth poses. Godtree got an otherworldly being stressing underground. Yuziu wasn't expecting to hear that from the system. Who would have thought that the darkness itself could feel threatened? He thought that to grow stronger, he must slay other beings. The more he killed, the stronger the darkness would become too. This was supposed to be a race to see who could become more powerful. While it's true that death in this world serves to empower the darkness, God Tree was the exception to this law. He was shocked, but he was more curious about that information than anything else. The system explained that the deaths he causes won't feed the darkness. Instead, they become evolution points for him to personally absorb. One could say that Yuziyu and the darkness are one and the same, two sides of the same coin. However, the darkness remains a whole lot stronger than him currently. It was so powerful that it could trigger a spiritual tide. A tide powerful enough to dominate the evolution of an entire planet. That's the type of enemy he was trying to challenge. Yuzi was starting to doubt whether he really was cut out for this, but he can't just surrender, as he laughs maniacally. Even the system gets confused by his bizarre reaction to such devastating news. Instead of fear, God Tree felt an unparalleled excitement, as he thought that he was beginning to understand why he was brought to this world. He's finally getting to the bottom of the purpose behind his rebirth. The system elaborated that the tide might not begin from the depths of the planet this time. It will most likely start in the starry skies or deep within the empty void. What's certain is that this spiritual energy tide will be the most terrifying one in history, as it will sweep across the entire universe. It will be rough, but those that can should seize the opportunity well. After finishing his eye-opening conversation with the system, Yuziyu opened his eyes. He immediately ordered Nine Tails to call Chinggong, Thorn, Demon Cow, as well as Emperor Crocodile, as he had something to announce. Under the bright moonlit sky, the inner circle of the Misty Mountains gathered to listen to their master. None of them had any idea why in the world would God Tree call such a serious meeting. Now that everyone was here, he declared that he would soon go into a deep sleep again to further his cultivation. Before that happens, there are a few things that he wants to entrust everyone. Apart from Half Moon City, they've also conquered Yon City in the past few days, and Thorn will oversee that city's management from now on. Chinggong will take the scientists from Half Moon and Yon City back to the underground city of Bayou Canyon, where they will continue the research on gene modification projects. They will have access to whatever they need, including life essence. Emperor Crocodile won't need to manage the interior of the Misty Mountains anymore. He will supervise the entire mountain's perimeter, leaving the interior matters to Demon Cow. From now on, every beast under their sphere of influence will answer to Demon Cow. Matters of external disputes, support, alliances, and everything else will fall on him. Lastly, Nine Tails will be in charge of recruiting new and powerful companions. If she needs any assistance, she can go directly to Demon Cow for reinforcements. Thorn asked the question in everyone's mind. How long will their master hibernate this time? You was still unclear regarding that. It would take him maybe half a year to a few years. In any case, it will take a long time. During that period, everything in the Misty Mountains will be entrusted to this select few. Everyone is ready for this. They would willingly step up into leadership roles for the foreseeable future. God Tree wants to prepare for the upcoming rise of the tide by attempting to spread his roots into the void. The darkness can just wait for what's to come, since Yuziyu does not intend to lose. Even if the spiritual energy of this world dissipates under the power of darkness, they will be prepared. Thorn and everyone else looked at their master as he transformed into a luminous spread of light. Before finally entering a breathtaking dormant state, his last words to his family were simply to survive. The God Tree's body closed as his core dove inside. Right now, he looks more like an elder tree with an inextinguishable light.
Wow! Beautiful!
Powers from places all over the world felt the change of an era incoming. A creature from the celestial Tian Shan Mountain looked in the distance, feeling the shift in the air. At the legendary Dragon God frame where remains of mythical beasts rested. A draconic beast also sensed the uncertainty in the atmosphere. In the land down under, the hidden leader of Australia's beast army was feeling the same sensation that all the powerhouses were feeling. A drastic shift in the world's dynamic is imminent. Enough of those boss monsters. Let's turn our attention to a smaller scale. A forest where average beasts were feasting on average people. A little girl watched as her companion became a monster's dinner. The joy in the hyena's face was evident as it went in for a second serving. The girl's terrified cry caught the attention of White Tiger, and the big cat came to the rescue. Given the drastic difference in level, White Tiger easily dealt with the hyena trash efficiently. When he's in combat, he really does seem like a killing machine. The little girl was safe, but she hadn't let her guard down yet until Thorn came up from behind. Looking up to see the human pant hybrid's obscured face scared the little girl more than the hyena from earlier did. The little girl ended up passing out due to the overwhelming fear. She woke up to the sight of the beautiful Thorn and the less than beautiful White Tiger, trying his best to put on a friendly face. Her survival instincts immediately kicked in, and she ran away backwards as fast as humanly possible. She thought that she would be dead by now, but she was still breathing. After some convincing, she agreed to ride on the back of White Tiger alongside Thorn. She had calmed down a little bit and asked if this tiger was Thorn's pet or something. But Thorn was more curious as to what this child was doing in that forest in the first place. It was a notorious area filled with countless beasts. It turned out that it was her uncle's idea to look for a certain herb in the woods. She's Xiao Lan, a normal human who had the ability to sense spiritual energy emitted by herbs. Thorn was disturbed that someone would send a little girl on such a risky task. But Xiao Lan is actually a victim of kidnapping. If she doesn't bring the herbs back in time, that uncle kidnapper will gouge his little brother's eyes and sell his organs. Thorn's blood ran cold. People can be so awful, no matter where and when. She wanted Xiao Lan to guide her to where her brother had been stashed for a rescue mission. Xiao Lan enthusiastically answered that her brother is being held at Yan City. But before that rescue mission, it seems like they have to deal with some unwelcome avian guests. A murder of crows appeared in front of them. By the looks of it, they did not come here to play. No matter how you spin it, this could not be good. Each one of these black crows is at the first order of transcendence. White Tiger wanted to take the initiative to land the first attack with his spiritual beam. It gleamed through the skies but failed to even graze a single bird. The flock immediately retaliated with a sinister spiritual beam of their own. Thorn has also been targeted by the murder birds. They tried to get close to her, only to get grabbed by her vine whips. With just the two of them in such a disadvantageous aerial battle, the crows were steadily getting the upper hand. They are too easy of a target in midair, so Thorn told White Tiger to hit the ground. He immediately tried to dive downwards with everything that he had. That's when an even bigger bad news presented itself. The leader of the flock was the Black Crow Emperor, a second-order transcendent hulking beast. The damn bird was too big to even be considered as a crow anymore. Unlike its underlings, this one can deal some serious damage from afar. Its spiritual beam was targeted at Xiao Lan instead of the two combatants. Fortunately, White Tiger's reflexes were fast enough to utilize his wings to defend. But taking on an attack of that caliber doesn't come without repercussions, as the three of them plummeted down. Thorn managed to stay afloat while gripping using her vine whips. Just as she was about to go and try to help White Tiger, the Black Crow Emperor decided to shift targets onto her. Defending a peck from that massive bird required the use of every vine that she could control. She tried her best to make the monster step aside from blocking the path. And the crow mysteriously gave in with no contest, flying away into God knows where. Meanwhile, White Tiger and the little girl have landed deep into a sprawling chasm in the middle of the woods. The landing was brutal, but his bulky body managed to tank the impact completely, leaving Xiao Lan unharmed but dizzy. He suddenly got up onto his feet, dropping the little girl onto the ground. He hit it for a good reason though. With White Tiger's game face on, he faced some incoming challengers from the depths. Overgrown worms and centipedes have made this underground hell their nest, and some food just dropped from the heavens.
Oh, hell no!
Not only were they gargantuan in size, but they were also disgusting to the highest degree. Sharp teeth and lit bodies slithered at blinding speeds, all of them competing to get the first bite. White Tiger responded by trying to repel these insects with his bright spiritual beam. He was way too strong for these bottom dwellers, tearing their bodies apart like cardboard. But the problem was quantity instead of quality. A few disgusting beasts managed to get past the beam, clinging onto his flesh. Thankfully, White Tiger's fort wasn't ranged fights, but relentless close combat. Combining his two combat styles, he could tear and blast his way through this situation easily. Shi Yaolon had front row seats in White Tiger's devastating show of power. After dealing with the immediate problem at hand, Shi Yaolon carefully came closer to the ruthless tiger. She rode on his back once again, but the ride was not as smooth as the one they had taken earlier, as White Tiger struggled to maintain his flight, bumping into the wall multiple times. In the end, both of them sustained bruises and giant-sized lumps on their heads. White Tiger's wings were too damaged to function properly. When asked what they should do now, he replied with the only words he could utter: "We're all going to die." That, combined with the big cat's grumbling, hungry stomach, freaked out the little girl. But something else distracted her from their dilemma, a possible silver lining out of this unfortunate situation. There was a fluctuation of spiritual energy coming from a spiritual herb, and only she could see it through the lens of her special ability. This spiritual herb is nothing like the usual ones that she has seen before. Shi Yaolon turned to little White Tiger and urged him to take a look together. Maybe they can use this herb to heal his broken wings. It was a great idea from the kid, but another problem cropped up. The big cat suddenly coughed up blood. Confused and scared, Shi Yaolon tried to ask him if he was okay. She looked at the part where that insect bit the big cat and saw some alarming discoloration. White Tiger had been poisoned. He looked at the little girl and told her that everyone would die, but that was just because of his speech defect. Still, Shi Yaolon was just a helpless and scared little girl. But she chose to be strong and tried to convince White Tiger that they were not dying in this ditch. Since he saved her with his broken wings, she fully intends to save him in return. It's a bit far, but White Tiger needs to hold on just for a little bit more. Up above, Thorn has successfully massacred the flock of crows by herself, while their leader flees all by itself. Thorn felt disdain for that shameless fleeing bird for being such a big chicken. Looking around, she unexpectedly saw some tempest wolves roaming the plains. If they are here, that just means that Yan City is not that far away from where she was dropped off. She can also use these wolves' sense of smell to help in finding the injured White Tiger and the little girl. But fate just keeps on handing out challenges one after the other. The rain came pouring down, and she knew that if this went on, they'd eventually lose the big cat and the little girl's scent. Speaking of those two, they slowly traversed the expansive ditch as fast as White Tiger's injuries allowed. Shi Yaolon was getting increasingly worried that this deep gash might get flooded if the rain continued. But there are bigger problems than flooding. For example, White Tiger collapsing as the poison in his bloodstream travels all over his massive body. Try as she might, Shi Yaolon could not get the big cat to wake up or move at all. Before passing out completely, he told her that everyone would die for the last time. She knew that this was due to the poison getting worse. If she can't figure out a solution, he will not be able to endure for much longer. Shi Yaolon took out the precious herb in her backpack and tried to cure the big cat. 2 hours later, he looked clean as a whistle, all bandaged up in the infected areas. She used the revolving spirit medicine to alleviate the poison and pain. It goes for 50,000 on the black market. She originally meant to use it to save her younger brother by bailing him out from the kidnappers. But she can't just watch White Tiger die helplessly. Now they can only hope that there will be other luxurious spirit herbs near the one they were looking for. White Tiger still has a broken wing, and Shi Yaolon still needs to save her little brother. They're on the same boat. White Tiger's determination to see this through was palpable in his eyes. But his speech about everyone dying contradicted everything. Lan was finally catching on to the fact that this overgrown cat can only say one morbid phrase. A few more minutes of walking, and the spirit herd presence brought them to a huge cavern. The unlikely duo of a stupid tiger and a brave little girl courageously ventured ahead. The spiritual aura was coming from a circular deep pit that looked like a sinkhole, and it looked like they have to jump down. White Tiger's wing might be broken, but he can still glide a little bit, letting gravity do its thing. Jumping down blindly would have been a very bad idea for anyone else, as a gaggle of grotesque worms were chilling down in this sinkhole. They couldn't afford to waste time in wiping everything out, so running was the only reasonable option. After shaking off the disgusting monsters, the duo quietly traversed the cold and dark cavity. Lan suddenly felt a slimy feeling in her head. Looking at whatever the hell landed on her, she started freaking out at the baby cave worm. White Tiger found it amusing, but the tons and tons of these disgusting things were having a slimy party up in the ceiling. Once their presence was known, an army of green suckers made them run a chase scene again. They made it safer to a water source, perfect to take a breather and rehydrate if it wasn't for another one of these slithering insects. Lan was just trying to have her dinner break, but this unforgiving place refused to give her room to breathe. This time, it's a water-dwelling centipede with a gruesome set of incisors, ready to feast on the duo's flesh. The injured White Tiger and Lan had to flee for their lives once again. With his declining health, the big cat was caught and constricted by the beast, while Lan bravely tried to use a piece of rock to save him. Thankfully, they managed to survive another close encounter. But Lan has been running on low stamina for quite some time now. She's just a normal human after all. But there was a literal light at the end of the tunnel that gave them newfound hope. The unlikely duo went through literal hell to get to this point. A beautiful plain filled with a plethora of flora shining with the blessing of the sun, with an enchanted tree as a centerpiece. Who would have thought that such a beautiful place was hidden beyond the literal insect hell? The duo shared a rare moment of genuine peace under the moonlit skies. Even if White Tiger has a speech defect, Lan is starting to understand whatever it is that the big cat is trying to say. With all this beauty before them, she could not help but remember how beautiful her hometown used to be. Looking at White Tiger menacingly, she revealed that her beautiful home was destroyed and beasts like White Tiger killed her parents.
Hold up. Wait a minute.
But Lan rolled it back a little bit, saying that she hated beasts so much at that time. She never could have imagined that the human heart could be even more horrifying. This big White Tiger injured his wings just to save her life, and for that, she's extremely grateful. When his feathers grow back, she would love to bring him to her hometown and to see the omnipresent red forest. The big cat might be saying that everyone will die, but he means that he would love to join her. He was so delighted that he kept on repeating his catchphrase. The little girl had to shut him up. That man whom she calls uncle, their captor, used to beat them for things that they had no control over. His idea of teaching them a lesson was bad in practice using their bodies. The deplorable, ugly bastard used to keep on hitting and hitting them with no remorse whatsoever. His accomplice worries that beating the kids too severely would make them hard to resell, but they can always just harvest their organs to sell. Lan and her little brother experience inhumane practices on a day-to-day basis, until their entire body hurts. The only thing keeping her going was the need to protect the little boy from this horrible life. She knew that to do that, they would have to survive. Only by surviving can they get out of this miserable life. Lan's experience is a testament to how much worse humans can be compared to beasts. Upon waking up from the bad dream, she started panicking. She tried to wake White Tiger up as they needed to get a move on. But the poison in his bloodstream was too strong and was rampaging inside his body. Seeing the horrible extent of the poisoning increase, she just knew that this gentle giant must be in a lot of pain right now. She looked towards the direction of their destination with an idea in mind. It was so near that she could practically taste it. Lan thinks that she can find it after passing through another small cavern. White Tiger was starting to drift towards total unconsciousness. She knew what had to be done. Steeling her resolve to venture alone, all she asked was for White Tiger to hold on a little longer. Xiaolan crawled to the little hole, leading to where the spirit herb was. It was narrow, dangerous, and disgusting. The little worms on the way did not bother her this time around. Now that there were more important matters at hand. Damn, Xiaolan is a lot stronger than most of us here. After a few moments, she finally started seeing the light, the exit. Exiting the small burrow, she saw countless holes that the insect beasts used to traverse the depths. Xiaolan was certain that there must be scary giant worms from this point onwards. Using her sensing abilities, she pinpointed the hole that was emitting the spirit herb's aura. She pushed through and scaled the wall of horrors, for the sake of her new buddy, the big white tiger. After all the climbing and crawling, she finally arrived at the other side, where a gigantic centipede was slumbering. Xiaolan could not afford to make any sudden noises, or she would be insect food. Beside the Herculean insect lies the precious spirit herb. She felt proud of herself for getting this far, but now comes the hardest part. She can take that herb to help the big cat, as long as she doesn't wake the monster below. It looks scary and tough, but the little girl was tougher. She quickly scaled the wall, careful to not make a life-ending mistake. Unfortunately, the next piece of rock that she tried to use for support gave out. The rubble fell, hitting the centipede square on its gigantic body. Xiaolan feared that this might be it for her. But the beast was so big that her little rubble incident did not even register as a threat. Finally, just a little pull, and she would be within arm's reach of the herb. Xiaolan had to catch her breath for a minute after a grueling journey to get there. Seeing it closely, she was delighted to identify the plant as a regeneration herb, which means that there's still hope for White Tiger. But the problem was there was no other precious herb growing around this one. If there's only one of these things, then she won't have anything to use as a bargaining chip for her little bro. To make matters so much worse, the disgusting giant insect behind her finally woke up. By the looks of it, this monster might be the guardian of this herb. Luckily, she managed to avoid the first attack in a panic. She took the opportunity to grab the plant, clutching it as tight as she could. Her size made it possible to choose a little hole to use as an escape path while the beast was going on a rampage. She ran like her life depended on it because it did. The centipede was so powerful that it could just force itself through the little passageway to chase after the intruder. This path led Xiaolan to the breeding ground of the blood-sucking worms coiled around the cavern ceiling. Sensing the presence of the treasure in her hands, the little suckers woke up and greedily bared their horrifying rows of teeth against the little girl. Blood-sucking worms at the front, a gigantic centipede beast coming from the back. Xiaolan was completely cornered. Just as she was about to become insect food, the ground could not support the beast's size and weight, making the ground shake, destructing the insects, and altering the subterranean topography. Xiaolan used the commotion to continue running forward without looking back. Unfortunately for the brave little girl, the path that she chose led to a dead end. She thought she was free to go back to cure White Tiger, but problems just kept on popping up continuously. The giant centipede had also regained its footing, catching up to Xiaolan. On her back was a dead end, and up front was an extremely angry, overgrown insect. Even on the brink of being a centipede's snack, she did not let go of the regeneration herb. The centipede made this horrible insect sound, akin to the sound of death, but Xiaolan's pleas for help were answered by White Tiger, who's fighting the raging poison in his body. The big cat threw his entire weight and force straight to the centipede, a clash of sheer strength. He took the chance to bite down on its exoskeleton, with as much power as he could still muster. Xiaolan's spirit was lifted at the sight of her savior coming in clutch. White Tiger also took the chance to fire a spiritual beam from point-blank range for maximum damage. It did not finish the enemy off, but it certainly hurt the centipede badly as it wriggled in pain and surprise. Even with the handicap of a lethal poison running in his veins, the king still possesses his regal supremacy. Xia Lan was all smiles, celebrating the big cat's big win. But even though a significant part of the giant centipede's body was blown off, it was still exhibiting signs of life. White Tiger noticed what it was trying to do and immediately went into emergency mode. This gruesome beast had the capability to self-destruct. When brought to the brink of death, it drug everyone along. It unleashed a guttural sound of desperation as the spiritual energy inside its body reached critical mass for an imminent explosion. White Tiger quickly took Xia Lan and ran as fast as he could. The explosion pierced through the ancient walls of the massive ditch. The duo managed to avoid the brunt of the final gambit, but the impact sent them rolling through the cliff. They ultimately landed back on the bed of flowers, under the moonlit skies. With the poison reaching complete domination of the big cat's body and the brute force of the detonation, White Tiger was out like a light. Not only that, but Xia Lan also suffered a fatal injury as a loose sharp rock was lodged into her stomach. It nicked her internal organs, causing a cascade of blood coming out of her mouth. She'd never felt so much pain before. She was starting to lose sensation all over her body. This must be what death feels like. But even at this mortal junction, her little hands never once let go of the regeneration herb. Even as her little life started slipping away, on her mind was her little brother, and the desire to stand up as an elder sister to save the little boy. White Tiger was also completely out of commission at this point. Before completely succumbing to the poison and all of his injuries, White Tiger's life in the Misty Mountains flashed before his eyes, his intense spars with bald head, his consistent victories in a dominating fashion. He also remembered Godtree's incessant nagging to dodge attacks, even though this was just sparring. Godtree kept on reminding him that even with a strong body, brute force can only go so far. Dodging attacks and not falling into the enemy's way of fighting is the way to go. He even foretold that if he goes down this path, White Tiger will eventually fall against paralysis, fainting, or poison. Now the big cat realized why his master kept on urging him to train properly before it was too late. White Tiger woke up from the regretful memory. As he yelled his catchphrase anxiously, he started looking around after realizing that he was alive. Not only that, but his broken wings also looked brand new. Xia Lan was sitting against a tree. She was glad that her new buddy finally woke up, which means the medicine has taken effect. Turning in her direction, White Tiger finally saw the miserable state that the little girl was in. The life in her eyes was almost gone, as the stab wound on her stomach continued to bleed. White Tiger started panicking and yelling, not knowing what to do. Xia Lan berated him for being so noisy when she hadn't died yet. She held on to ask the big White Tiger for a favor, a final plea to save her little brother from the cruelty of their captors. 15 miles east of this place, there's an old village where her scent had undoubtedly lingered. Her little bro is in that cursed place, suffering alone. All she asked of the big cat was to save that innocent little boy. Another thing that she regrets is the fact that she won't be able to bring her new friend to see the omnipresent red forest anymore. In place of her, she wants her little brother to guide White Tiger instead. Xia Lan smiled contently as she asked the big cat if that would be okay. He understood. He might be a dumb cat that can't string a coherent sentence, but he understood. For the first time in forever, he eked out a new word. Okay. He tried hard to put the little girl's worries to rest. When life finally left her eyes completely, White Tiger's next new words were Xia Lan's name. Godtree and Thorn couldn't even teach him to speak other words, but a little girl's tragedy gave him his voice. White Tiger regretted not listening to Godtree's instruction all those times that the boss trained him. The gentle giant's tears started flowing uncontrollably, while yelling Xia Lan's name. Press F to pay respects. He unleashed a guttural roar full of sorrow and regret, piercing through the heavens. This roar attracted the attention of another giant centipede and the Black Crow Emperor that sent them down here in the first place. The talons of the Black Crow Emperor gripped a rock to see the commotion in the field of flowers. A giant centipede beast crawled through whatever hellhole it came from. Two disgraceful beasts interrupted the fully healed white tiger's moment of mourning at the loss of a friend. The black bird cawed as hard as it could. The centipede let out a grating noise fitting of a lowly insect. White Tiger remained silent. A sinister and supercharged energy slowly accumulated into his body. The dark power complemented his black stripes, as if he was saying that the Mr. Nice Guy was gone. All that's left is a grieving death god hungry for the flesh and blood of these audacious beasts that played a part in Xiao Wan's demise. Once everything was said and done, the entire field of flowers was destroyed by the debris of the ruined cliffs. The only thing that remained upright was the mystical tree that the little girl was leaning against. Thorn has finally arrived at the scene. It wasn't that hard to track White Tiger with all the destruction that he caused. The Black Emperor Crow and the giant centipede did not even stand a chance against a raging tiger before they returned into cold corpses. She doesn't know what exactly happened here, but Thorn could feel the sorrow radiating from her fuzzy friend. White Tiger remained motionless. He had bloody injuries all over his body, but he didn't even feel the pain. The brave little Xiao Lan was motionless too, and couldn't feel her injuries too. Thorn walked forward and got a closer look at the miserable state of the little girl. She placed her palm against her neck in hopes of feeling some semblance of life, and he unexpectedly felt a weak beating sensation. 15 miles east of the Moonlit Garden, a quaint little village of wooden houses hides a horrible secret. Guard dogs were trained to look after and secure the merchandise in a bloody cage. Kids. They were keeping kids in cages. The scumbags that run the place drink and smoke their day away, while one of their so-called hoods dies from being too sick. It seems like this scene was just an everyday occurrence for them. They just wrapped the kid up in a garbage bag and threw it in the trash casually. These scums of the earth were just waiting for Xiao Lan to come back, certain that the little girl won't run away on account of her little brother. Once she returns with the precious herb, they fully intend on just selling the internal organs of the siblings. Just as those vile thoughts were going through the kidnapper's mind, the guard dogs started going crazy and barking fiercely. The wooden gate and the crazed guards were blown away by an explosive force coming from outside. The dirtbags immediately went on high alert, thinking that intruders were upon them. In reality, it was just Thorn standing all by herself. Her expression was as dark as it could get. The murderous aura emanating from her body was oozing out. These bastards saw a girl and did not even notice that Thorn was overflowing with killing intent. The man that the kids call Uncle was so depraved that the first thing he thought about was that this girl could earn them a great chunk of money in the black market. He rushed forward with the intent of catching Thorn using an empty bottle of alcohol. His dream of hitting it big by selling a person to depravity was dashed when White Tiger came in with his ferocity on full display. Thorn watched without batting an eye as the gentle giant claimed first blood on this pest extermination mission. A lone woman and a Herculean beast stood before the lowlifes, their terrifying power in full display. The scoundrel called Uncle lost his head in a split second, prompting the other imbecile to pathetically flee in fright. Thorn's vine whip stretched and moved at blinding speeds to catch the escaping half-wit. A single stab wound in the middle of the body claimed the miscreant's life, a quick end to the degeneracy that they brought to this world. White Tiger proceeded to smash all the cages open, freeing the children from their inhumane enclosures. These kids were so traumatized that they were even scared of the ones that freed them from the nasty cages. One little boy even called the big cat a stinky tiger. The fully healed Xiao Lan finally appeared. She was riding at the back of the fuzzy tiger the whole time. Now she can finally go to her little brother, Xiao Gong. It was nothing short of a miracle that the siblings even got reunited at this point. Thorn looked around at the dilapidated hideout and was disturbed by how many children were held in captivity. They freed all these unfortunate kids to once again be free like they were supposed to be. Back in the ruined flower fields, Thorn had to move quickly to heal Xiao Lan. Luckily, the the brave little girl held onto a little sliver of life, so the life essence that God Tree gave her can still be used. After asking the children, it turns out that all of them were kidnapped from Smoke City, an area that's under the Misty Mountains management now. Thorn also walked towards Xiao Lan and told her that she and her little brother could follow Thorn from now on. Xiao Lan happily agreed to be a part of her savior's team. Now that she has seen how the chaos of Smoke City can bring about the scabs of humanity, Thorn is determined to set things in order once she takes charge. The rescued kids quickly warmed up to the gentle giant, treating his gigantic fluffy body as some sort of playground. Let's turn our attention to an unknown small country where the dog man of the Dark Assembly was sending his report to Xiao Ling regarding the successful retrieval of a mutated baby that possesses a beast's bloodline. But this ugly baby was still not enough. Dark Assembly is in dire need of a bigger sample size. They are going to need a lot more helpers before the impending great battle starts. The Dark Assembly that Xiao Ling established has grown by leaps and bounds, enlisting the aid of mutated humans to their cause. That furry army is looking scary. Time continued to pass as Yu was in deep slumber during his cultivation. During this period, he would occasionally wake up and fall right back into sleep. 3 years passed, and his 9 wood arboreal roots transformed into 81 arboreal roots. Each one was as tough and fierce as a Titan Noboa. Moreover, one of them mutated into a split root while exploring the void. His branches expanded to more than 300 strands. Every facet of his body went through a qualitative change. While he was in hibernation, the whole world went through some earth-shattering changes. Sparky created quite a commotion and established his name through blood shed in Australia. Xiao Ling developed Inferno City into one of the 10 most powerful cities on the continent. She reached the third order of transcendence, becoming one of the peak powerhouses of humanity. The world of beasts has also been shaken up from the sky, land, and sea, as strange creatures started appearing everywhere. One by one, cryptic beasts appeared in forbidden lands out of nowhere, only to vanish after some time passed. Chaos gave rise to powerful tyrants and their own revolutions. The powerful Federation even lost control of several cities. But the biggest development was the emergence of the 4 great races. The Misty Mountains were dubbed as the Forbidden Land among forbidden lands. But given that they've been dormant for the past 3 years, humans and beasts started to forget the power that the name Misty Mountains holds. It's become more commonly referred to as the Lost Land. 3 years was a long time in every metric, especially in the spiritual era. Little Xiao Lan has grown into a fine young lady. Thorn has shaped her to stand in as Smoke City's leader whenever she and White Tiger attend to other businesses. That brave child has also climbed the ranks to reach the second order of transcendence. Unbeknownst to the rest of the world, something big was about to happen in Bayou Canyon. Qinggong, Lung Feng, and his sister Lung Yu were the first ones to arrive, followed by Thorn and White Tiger. The fluctuations of God Tree's spiritual power have been growing in power recently. They gathered everyone to wait for their master's imminent awakening. Nine Tails, Bald Head, and everyone else dropped what they were doing to welcome the boss. As the solid trump that remained motionless these past 3 years opened, a light full of life started coalescing in the middle. Branches eventually shifted and transformed into a familiar shape. Yuziyu was finally back in business. His trusted subordinates lined up to greet and congratulate him for coming back stronger. Qinggong noticed that God Tree's spiritual power had reached an unfathomable level. Yuziyu himself didn't expect to actually sleep for 3 whole years. He turned to his beast family and asked if everyone had arrived. Behind him, a dormant beast has been a silent companion throughout his slumber. The bizarre Sea King from all those years ago has successfully evolved into a dark willow tree variant. Everyone couldn't believe that an enemy from the past had turned into a replica of their master. During these 3 years, this inactive beast has also matured but failed to copy his divine abilities. For now, God Tree decided to use hallucination to wipe its consciousness, while preserving the evolved body. He turned to everyone and asked for a detailed account of significant events from the years that he was absent. On the outskirts of the Misty Mountains, there was a lone figure surveying the ground. He looked at the #1 forbidden land on the planet and didn't seem too impressed. Rumors said that the infamous demonic tree had suffered a serious injury and was under recovery. From outside standpoint, the speculations made a lot of sense. Today, Mu Tian, a transcendent third-order member of the three-eyed divine race, has come to check things out. He jumped from a cliff and smoothly glided through the thick mist. Today was the first time that Yuziu heard about the rumors regarding his well-being and the steady decline of Misty Mountain's notoriety. Before even being able to process all these overwhelming news and changes, God Tree felt something substantial enter the mountains. It looks like an uninvited guest has arrived to crash his welcome party. Instead of addressing all the 3 years' worth of issues, he reckoned it would be fun to meet their three-eyed guest first. The first one to intercept Mu Tian was the electrifying honey badger, Bald Head. Bald Head has made quite a reputation for himself as one of the beasts living in this lost land. He supercharged himself with the power of thunder and went to do what he does best, ramping up his speed and coming at unpredictable angles to overwhelm an enemy. But Mu Tian stayed calm, as he could see Bald Head's lightning-fast movements as clear as day. He bragged that he could even dodge with his eyes closed. To prove that he wasn't just bragging, Mu Tian just demonstrated his superior battle sense with a masterful dodge. Bald Head felt infuriated by this three-eyed brat, so he decided to play dirty and use some brown material supercharged with electricity as a ranged attack. But concealed weapons were useless against this guy. Mu Tian felt good about himself, but that changed when he saw and smelled what kind of brown concealed weapon he just caught.
Ew! What the?
Bald Head laughed at the guy for falling for his stinky trick. Mu Tian finally loses his cool and swears to kill the honey badger with everything he's got. Just one issue though, one big, legendary, draconic issue has emerged. He didn't expect that a real dragon was also living behind this thick mist. Thunder Dragon unleashed his thunderous dragon breath, destroying everything along the way. God Tree had just returned, and already his territory was under attack by one of his legendary subordinates. Thunder Dragon and Bald Head made for a terrifying electric-type tag team. Mu Tian remained unharmed, thanks to his powerful barrier going up on time. The existence of a dragon on Misty Mountain hadn't been documented in his information network. He was still reeling from the electric attacks when a fast-moving carpet of icicles made its way toward him. The ice formation tried to catch up to Mu Tian, eventually growing to the size of massive sharp glaciers. On one of the peaks was a white serpentine beast slithering around. Mu Tian watched in disbelief at the sight of this new addition to the battle. One dragon was already bad enough. Make it two, and it was just ridiculous. Moreover, this one commanded the ice element. Elemental tricks weren't the only thing that this white serpent had up her sleeves. She also had physical combat skills. Mu Tian was forced to block and absorb the impact from a tail swipe, sending him crashing from the carpet of ice into the woods, eventually stopping once he hit a mountain. This nosy guy had just gone to check out Misty Mountains, and now he was being whooped by two dragons. He coughed up blood, indicating some damage to his organs. He wasn't used to losing this badly, so he felt utterly infuriated. But his furious rush was interrupted by hands made of soil looking to get a grip on his body. Caught off guard, two earth hands clamped down around him tightly. This type of ensnarement wasn't going to be too effective in holding an esteemed member of the three-eyed divine race, though. Mu Tian would eventually brute force his way out of the hands, wrecking it from the inside. The earthen mold was split into multiple parts as the brat broke free. Now Mu Tian meant business. All three of his eyes were going all in. But the onslaught of different attacks was seemingly endless. This time, an earth golem stood in his way. Bratty Mu Tian grew impatient and unleashed a divine death ray, piercing through the earthen body of the golem cleanly. The thing about golems is they're essentially immortal if the summoner is still up and about. Even with a shattered body, this thing can still dish out some serious destructive force. The golem smacked the three-eyed freak, but another divine death ray tore its hands open as it continued to destroy the head. Mu Tian yelled that he was not someone that this group could bully so easily. He was so busy yapping that he did not notice Qin Gong going in for a sneak attack from a tricky angle. The sneaky punch from the elemental general rocked an entire mountain with its strength. The poor brat took the full brunt of that attack, and now he stuck to the ground. God Tree had been watching the spectacle from the start. He was pleased to see that everyone had grown stronger with the passage of time. Qin Gong had gone on to master his elemental capabilities. He decided that it would be best to bring this intruder back to the master first. But it seemed like that plan wasn't going to work, as another divine death ray beamed out of Mu Tian's third eye, disintegrating Qin Gong's head. The elemental general lost grip of the guest at the place where his brain was supposed to be deleted. Mu Tian laughed like a maniac after frying Qin Gong's brain, taunting him to fight more with his empty head. But this bastard's laugh halted when he saw something that he'd never seen before. Qin Gong's vaporized head started to light up as his flesh regenerated with the help of the earth. It only took a few seconds to make a full recovery from a point-blank brain damage. He asked Mu Tian what in the world was so funny. Just as the intruder was about to unleash another one of his death rays, his wind-up was interrupted by a draconic breath containing enough voltage to power an entire city. Mu Tian tried his best to defend, but you can only do so much in the face of a legendary beast. A white-eyed dragon also joined in on the fun to cool the three-eyed freak down after getting fried by electricity. He managed to expertly maneuver around the icicles with everything that he's got, focusing on dodging left and wide open for an electrifying headbutt courtesy of Bald Head. Mu Tian had traveled miles across these misty woods. After getting pushed around by the powerful beasts, he was only facing 4 monsters, and they were not even the best ones that this lost land could offer. The intruder was forced to admit that the only reasonable move was to escape. He had just planned to scout this place, and now he was fighting for his survival like a scrub. Fortunately for him, he had the mini-divine ability to open dimensional pockets using space escape. Before finally leaving the area, he turned to the monsters and vowed to have his revenge one day. But you wouldn't need to wait for that day to come, now that Ziyu had decided to personally make a move. His sharp demi-human body towered over the three-eyed freak and his little pocket dimension. Mu Tian's blood ran cold at the sight of this being. He wasn't prepared to go up against the strongest being in the world at all.
You're a victim.
Mu Tian stumbled on his words, but he knew who this entity was. Everyone in the world knew who this entity was. Ziyu didn't even bother to respond and just flourished his hand. The space escape that the three-eyed freak had opened with his mini-divine ability closed against his will. He could only look at his closing portal in defeat, his only hope of escape vanishing in a literal wave of a hand. Now Mu Tian was panicking. He'd never encountered something like this before, the hopelessness getting into his head. To prevent the bastard from doing anything unpredictable, God Tree bound his entire body with his empowered roots. Mu Tian tried to beg God Tree to wait before he did whatever it was he was about to do. But crashing a long-awaited welcome party was an unforgivable crime in these parts. God Tree closed his fist, and with it came the crushing of Mu Tian's bones and life. That single kill netted Ziyu a little more than 1,000,000 evolution points. Not bad for a welcome gift. He had just come back after 3 years of slumber, and his first kill was a member of one of the divine races. He laid down Mu Tian's lifeless body and gently took the eye from the intruder's forehead. Ziyu scanned the eye with his system and was notified that this thing contained the special ability to unseal someone's eye. Aside from the massive evolution point gain, he didn't expect to gain another ability from the get-go. The third eye immediately dimmed after he dug it out. Maybe injecting some spiritual power into it would bring about some kind of change. This organ was called a heavenly eye. the precious treasure belonging to the three-eyed divine race. Injecting some spiritual power into it gave it life. It also gave Yuziu a sensation that he had never felt before. The heavenly eye granted him an impeccable vision that saw through the visage of the physical world. With this eye, he could see through things, but more importantly, his perception of motion became even clearer. It was as if the world around him had slowed down. With such a field of view on the battlefield, it was like giving a tiger wings. Upon a little more deliberation, Godtree assessed that this thing wouldn't be too useful for him. Speaking of tigers and wings, White Tiger, who still hadn't found a cure for his speech defect until now, had come to greet his master. He came just in time to receive a handsome reward in the form of the heavenly eye. All White Tiger had to do was inject some spiritual energy into it, and the organ automatically fused onto his forehead. He might look fierce, but it would take a lot of practice before he could use it in combat effectively. Godtree's next stop for today was the underground city. This used to be a primitive space filled with beast workers, and now it had become a state-of-the-art scientific facility. Over these 3 years, things had changed quite a lot. The scientists here also revered him as the God Tree, though Yuziu didn't want them to be all formal, since he was just looking around to see their research. A bald scientist explained that during these 3 years, they'd obtained a lot of insights about the evolution of creatures. They'd successfully developed a medicine that expedited the evolution process. But their bigger achievement was the development of an innate talent medicine. Even Godtree was shocked to hear the name of this drug, since innate talent was widely known to be set in stone. They synthesized the drug from the cells of an ant that they infused with a rhinoceros beetle. A single drop of this miracle dose would transform an ordinary insect into a different type of beast altogether, a titan with unbelievable strength. Infusing a superior innate talent into a living creature would be a game changer. If possible, Godtree could possibly infuse his own abilities into the bodies of his subordinates. However, the research was currently impossible to replicate outside of insect-type creatures, but the brilliant minds in this lab were working on furthering this study. They also successfully developed elemental powers in test tubes using the blood of Nine-Tails and Flood Dragon. They got some wild wolves in captivity to demonstrate its effects. Once the substance had been emptied right into their bodies, the wolves underwent a dramatic elemental transformation of fire and ice. These wild beasts immediately gained the power to manipulate elements because of a drug. Seeing as how effective and stable it was, this too could become a game changer. Creating a flame wolf and ice wolf in just a few seconds was a godlike feat. The elemental powers not only made them stronger, but also upgraded their class. These rockstar scientists had also developed a lot of weapons and defensive tools. The large-scale spiritual power weapons in development will also be available for usage soon. Godtree was pleased that he had decided to establish this institution before he fell asleep 3 years ago. He urged the head scientists to continue their thing and just ask Lung Feng for anything that their studies required. Overall, this field trip in the research facility was nothing short of a home run. Yuziu assessed that the single void tree root he got from his cultivation was the greatest harvest he got after 3 years. After investigating the deepest depths of the earth, he now roughly knew the time of descent for the third tide, and around half a year from now, the most dreadful spiritual energy tide would begin. The first tide altered the genes of all creatures. The second activated their spiritual wisdom. The third might allow creatures to evolve into an even higher stage of existence. Just like the three-eyed divine race, even stronger races would continue to emerge from now on. When that third tide hit, the entire planet would undergo an unprecedented rate of change. The only thing Yuziu could do to prepare was to evolve once again. The inevitable battle with darkness was about to finally begin.